Infinite projection room begins with the projection of Ultron's world destruction. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 576, Superman, Man of Steel is now on air. In the room of the Grassland Orphanage, Xia King changed into a brand new exploration suit. "Miss, where are you going?" Time Chicken pushed open the door, holding a bunch of grasshoppers in his hand. "Don't call me miss." Xia King turned her head and said, "Call me queen. If you go out dressed like this, people will think you are crazy. This is my exploration suit." "But Dean," she said, "that if you run around, you will be caught and pressed under the mountain. Then don't let Dean Shi find you." Xia King waved at Time Chicken, jumped directly from the 3rd floor. "Miss, what treasure are you going to find?" Xia King didn't answer, but looked up at the steel star in the distance. "You liar, I will definitely find you, and then punish you to serve me for the rest of your life." Time and Space Transfer Station. At the bottom of the brain hole, a brand new story is slowly being written. Scene 1. Outer Hulu Mountain. During the day, Hulu Mountain is surrounded by smoke. Narration. A long time ago. Easter egg. Endgame. Misfortune is just the beginning of another happy story. Oh my. Everyone's eyes narrowed, and they found something interesting. Although it's not just Hulu Mountain, it would be great if Xia King and Xiaojin Gang could live happily together in the end. No break. Now start playing Superman Man of Steel. Keyword, Clark. You call this a keyword? This is output right next to the face. Batcave. Clark saw everything on the screen and didn't know what to do. "Mr. Clark." A differentiated small screen appeared in front of Clark. The screening room has strengthened privacy protection after the update. Do you agree to the screening room playing videos about you and becoming a special guest of this screening? Looking at the screen, Clark also knew that his existence could not be concealed. Bruce had come to his door. If he kept covering up his past, it would cause the other party to have deeper suspicion. In this case, he was not allowed to talk about it publicly. Clark believed that when Bruce read his story, he would also let down his guard against him. Moreover, he was also very curious about his future. If the younger self saw his future in advance, he would definitely not let his father die in front of him. "Okay," Clark said, "sometimes it is better to talk openly and honestly. Thank you for your support." After the screening room will give a small gift. The next second, Clark was teleported into the screening room. After Clark was teleported in, Bruce tensed his body at the first time. Even though he knew that killing was not allowed in the screening room, it was impossible for him not to feel fear when facing a monster that could force the detector value to explode. The River God and Janitor were not afraid of Clark's appearance at all. One of them was ignorant, and the other did not think Clark was very strong. After all, there was a super high-class father at home. Others were more alert and curious. "Hello." Clark could only smile and greet. "I'm Clark Kent, Big Brother." Janitor ran directly to Clark and asked, "What does this symbol on your clothes mean?" "This is a symbol of my hometown." Superman said, "What does it mean specifically?" "Let's watch the video. I want to get the answer back." Superman Man of Steel start. A pregnant woman is giving birth at this moment. After experiencing extremely painful childbirth, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Her husband and a strange machine helped her deliver the baby. Looking at his child, the father's face showed joy and confusion. The next moment, the picture switched to the outside world, which was a forest with countless strange species. Wow. Janitor and the River God's eyes sparkled. "Is this the process of reproduction on your Earth and the life on Earth?" "Let's put reproduction aside for now." Bruce Wayne said, "I'm also sure that the creature is definitely not a creature on Earth." "Clark, I hope you can tell me who you are." "I'm Clark Kent." Clark looked at the suspicious tycoon and could only try to explain, "That place should be my home planet, Krypton." "Should? Because after I was born, Krypton was destroyed. My biological parents sent me into the escape pod. Then after a long journey in the universe, I came to Earth and was picked up by my adoptive parents and raised to adulthood. Although I have Kryptonian blood and genes, my thoughts and soul are all Earthlings." Bruce Wayne's face finally eased a little when he heard this. People's behavior and thoughts are acquired. Although innate genes have a great influence, acquired development is also very important. The simplest example is the wolf boy. Human babies raised by wolves will behave like wolves, which is the importance of acquired behavior training. In addition, there are bear children, monkey children, etc. According to the information he found, his adoptive parents are a very kind old couple. In the eyes of neighbors, they are all good people. If Clark really grew up in that environment, then he must have been greatly influenced by his adoptive parents, Mr. and Mrs. Kent. This can also explain why the other party has such powerful power, but has not caused any trouble on Earth for so many years. However, no matter what you say, your vigilance cannot be reduced. On the contrary, it must be strengthened. He was just a superhuman before, but now he is not pretending, and has become an alien. And the other party has such powerful power. What if the other party wants to occupy the Earth and turn it into a second Krypton? Exclamation mark. You must be on guard against others. Image continues, the screen switches, and comes to a conference room. The man who delivered the baby before is roaring loudly at a group of congressmen. Don't you understand? Krypton's core is on the verge of destruction. Clark's biological father, Jor-El, roared at a group of congressmen. We may only have a few weeks left, I warned you. Mining the core is tantamount to suicide, and accelerates the progress of the explosion. A congressman asked back, our energy reserves are running low, Al, what do you think we can do? Learn from our ancestors, and look for other planets. Jor-El tried to persuade, there is a habitable planet nearby, we can borrow the old base first. Are you really suggesting that we evacuate the entire planet? No, the people here are long gone. Jor-El said, let me control the secret book. I can ensure the continuation of the race. There is still a little hope. Hope is firmly in my hands. Look at Tigger. That subscription makes me heartbroken. Chapter 577. Krypton. Just as Jor-El was trying to persuade the counselors, the door behind him suddenly exploded. In the smoke, several lasers flew in and knocked down all the guards at the door. Before the counselors realized what was happening, they saw a middle-aged man with short hair in black armor walking in with a large number of people. This parliament has been dissolved. Who gave the order? Seeing that a counselor hadn't reacted yet, the leading man said directly, Zod, I gave the order. After saying that, Zod shot a counselor to death. And then he strode in here and said to all the counselors, you all have to be interrogated and punished in turn. Zod, what are you doing? Zod, you are simply crazy. Jor-El hurriedly stepped forward to stop him, and the counselor behind him was still sitting motionless at this moment. Do what I should have done all those years ago. Zod said to Jor-El, it's these congressmen who have ruined Krypton. Looking at the congressmen who were pulled off their seats by Zod's soldiers, Jor-El continued, even if your coup succeeds and everyone is dead, who will you rule? Then join my side. Zod put a hand on Jor-El's shoulder and said to him, give me a hand, save our people, and let us start over. We will cut off the inferior bloodline that has caused us to fall to this point. Zod, then who decides who lives and who dies? Jor-El asked. You, Al, don't do this. As Jor-El's longtime friend, Zod instantly understood what Jor-El meant. He said to Jor-El, the last thing I want is for us to become enemies. You betrayed our principles of cooperation, and you pointed your sword at your own people. Jor-El continued, Zod, I will respect you in the past, but now you have become worse than a beast. Take him away. Zod ordered his men. But in the corridor outside, Jor-El once again showed the world the necessary qualities of a scientist. That is, fighting power. Looking old, and still a civilian, Jor-El can fight better than a group of professional warriors. For a moment, the people in the screening room didn't know whether they had some fundamental understanding of the profession of scientist or the selected scientists just happened to be more capable of fighting. Anyway, after Jor-El's output, all the guards were knocked down by him, an old and weak scientist. Help me connect to Laura. Jor-El said to a machine. A woman's face instantly appeared on the machine. It was Al's wife, Laura. Al, be careful behind you. Al's first reaction after hearing this was to shoot, instantly killing the two guards behind him. One in a row. Then, Al said to Laura, "Laura, you have to be ready to launch the spaceship. I will rush over as soon as possible." At this moment, the outside world has become a mess. The rebels led by Zod and the government forces fought fiercely. Seeing this, Jor-El shouted, "Halakha!" A four-winged giant beast descended from the sky and carried Jor-El away from the battlefield. Clark's face was a little ugly. Although he had already known that his bloodline home planet was destroyed, the first thing he saw was the war on the home planet. This kind of thing is not easy for anyone, not to mention that according to the information he knew, his bloodline home planet would soon be completely destroyed. The four-winged giant beast carried Jor-El to a place similar to a culture cabin. "Halakha, can you see the secret book?" "Yes, the secret book is under the core, but I must remind you that trespassing into the creation chamber is a Class B felony." Faced with a reminder from the artificial intelligence, Jor-El said without hesitation, "No one will care. It's almost the end of the world." Then, he jumped and came to the vicinity of the so-called secret book. And here, there are countless baby embryos developing. What is this? Test tube babies? Looking at such a large number of test tube babies, everyone was a little puzzled. "According to what I know, I'm the only child born naturally in tens of millions of years on our home planet," Clark said. "Krypton has already entered the period of artificial breeding. The secret codex contains all the DNA of Kryptonians. In other words, the secret codex is the gene bank of Krypton." "I see." Bruce Wayne nodded and said, "Before, I thought the so-called secret codex was some powerful weapon. It turns out to be a gene bank. If there is a gene bank, as long as there is a certain technology, Jor-El can reproduce countless Kryptonians through the gene bank. That's why he said that, if the secret codex is handed over to him, he is the only hope." The robot is still working, taking off the mature embryos and taking them away. But then, Jor-El took off the secret codex, a skull emitting golden runes. As soon as Jor-El emerged from the water, he saw a spaceship coming in front of him. "Jor-El, General Zod has ordered you to hand over the secret code." Jor-El looked at the war still going on below, knowing that this planet and the people on it were doomed. He jumped without hesitation, then shouted, "Halakha!" Halakha flew over, caught Jor-El, and took him back to his home through the hail of bullets. In the laboratory, Jor-El used an instrument to decompose the secret code and then introduced it into his child's body. And Laura also told Jor-El that she had found the planet, just as Jor-El had said before, a new star orbiting a yellow main sequence star. That is, Earth. His cells will absorb the radiation of the yellow sun, where there are also a group of intelligent life forms. He will look out of place. Laura said, "Like a monster. They will kill him." "How is it possible? He will be a godsend from the sky. What if the spacecraft cannot arrive safely?" Hearing this, Jor-El also hesitated. This is his child, his flesh and blood. He placed a heavy bet on this child. A heavy bet related to whether Krypton can be reborn. Chapter 578, Destruction of Krypton. Krypton is doomed. Jor-El could only say, "This is our only chance, and our only hope." Just then, an enemy ship came after them. They all knew that this was their last chance. Jor-El said his last goodbye to their child, and Laura, with tears in her eyes, put the baby in her arms into the spaceship. After saying goodbye to the child, Jor-El took the armor with an S logo and went to face Zod. "This is the origin of the S on my chest." Clark looked at the two people on the screen and saw his mother's tears. Although he had never seen his mother and his father was only a virtual image, he could still feel the feelings of his biological parents for him. Zod walked into Jor-El's home and saw Jor-El, who had been waiting for a long time. Looking at Jor-El, Zod's tone was no longer friendly. He said coldly, "Jor-El, I know it was you who stole the secret book. Hand it over, and I will spare your life." Jor-El looked at Zod and said something that made Zod confused. "This chance of rebirth belongs to Krypton, not the character you think is important." "Zod, Laura and I have a child, a boy." Jor-El's face was full of pride at this moment. The first child born naturally on Krypton in hundreds of years. He will be free to write his own destiny. General Zod was stunned for a few seconds and immediately ordered the soldiers next to him, "Destroy the spaceship." But Jor-El was faster. As a scientist, His speed far exceeded that of a group of soldiers. He knocked down the soldier behind him with 2 shots, and then he wrestled with Zod. If Jor-El could beat ordinary soldiers, it could be understood that elite soldiers had additional attribute bonuses, but even General Zod could only fight Jor-El 3270, and even had a bloody mark on his face. The two of them wrestled madly, and Jor-El showed a stronger physical fitness and fighting skills than ordinary soldiers. Every punch hit the flesh, and every move was aimed at General Zod's face. Faced with Jor-El's continuous punches, General Zod was beaten and couldn't resist for a while, and was finally humiliated and knocked to the ground. He could only play the emotional card with Laura. Laura, listen to me. The secret codex is the future of Krypton. Cancel the launch. Laura was indifferent, just crying, and sent her child and the secret codex away. Seeing this, Constantine couldn't help but say, do I have any misunderstanding about the word scientist? That's a general. Why can Jor-El knock down an entire guard team and a general alone? Everyone couldn't help laughing. Since the story of Hikaru was spread, people have been unable to look directly at the position of scientist. Now Hikaru blasted the bird with a beam and slashed the Emperor with a sword. Later, El shot 2 guards with 1 gun and killed Zod with hand-to-hand combat. I always feel that scientists nowadays are transferred after reaching the maximum level of warriors. Zod looked at the distant spaceship and roared in grief and anger. Whether he launched a coup or killed the senator, it was all for Krypton. Because he is the general of Krypton, and protecting Krypton is a mission ingrained in his DNA. Now that the secret book has been taken away, it is almost a sentence for the future of Krypton to be cut off. Live room barrage. Wonder, why do I hear the words of the screening room? General Zod is still a good person? Constantine, it can't be said that he is a good person or a bad person. It can only be said that he is in the lawful camp. His mission is to protect Krypton, but how to protect it and what method to use to protect it is hard to say. Maybe for him, killing the senator and changing the dynasty is the best way to protect it, because it is very likely that for him, he really thinks so. Bruce Wayne, simply put, it is another version of Infinite Ultron. Infinite Ultron believes that to protect the Earth, humans must be eliminated. For Zod, to protect Krypton, he must kill the senator. Bruce Wayne, so after Jor-El took away the secret codex, Zod seemed so collapsed. If Krypton really relies entirely on the secret codex to reproduce the next generation, then when the secret codex was taken away, the future of Krypton was also taken away. It can even be said that Krypton directly ceased to exist. As a general who was set to protect Krypton, Zod's meaning of existence naturally ceased to exist. Clark Kent, my biological father said that I was the first Kryptonian to gain freedom in millions of years, and the first Kryptonian newborn to be born naturally, so I gained freedom. Clark Kent, because the lives of other Kryptonian newborns have been doomed since the moment he was set by the secret codex. If you need a worker, you give birth to a worker. If you need a scientist, you give birth to a scientist. The video continues. The secret book was sent away. General Zod, who was so angry that he almost collapsed, stretched out his dagger without hesitation and stabbed Jor-El, who was concentrating on watching his son leave Krypton. The white knife went in, and the red knife came out. Jor-El fell down. Zod took a deep breath and asked, "Where did you send him?" "His name is Carl, the son of El." Laura hugged her husband's body and said slowly, "Don't think about finding him." Zod did not kill Laura, the widow of El. He walked outside and said to his men, "Shoot down that spaceship." The chasing spaceship started immediately. The muzzle on the spaceship was aimed at Carl's escape pod. General Zod could no longer care about so much. As long as the secret book was still there, at least it could be repaired. It would take more time. At this critical moment, another shell hit Zod's spaceship. Amidst the intense fireworks, Carl's spaceship successfully flew into the universe. The ones who opened fire were the government troops who came to quell the rebellion. In the court, the judge announced the verdict on General Zod and his men. "General Zod, suspected of murder and treason, the parliament has sentenced you and your accomplices to exile for 300 years. The congressman in charge of the announcement asked, "Do you have any last words? You dare not kill us with your own hands. You are afraid of getting your hands dirty. General Zod suddenly jumped up and pounced on the congressman, roaring angrily, "So you are going to throw us all into the Phantom Zone and lock us up for life?" General Zod, with a bloody mark on his face from being beaten by Jor-El, roared, "Jor-El is absolutely right. You are a bunch of idiots. Without exception. And you." Zod strode up to Laura and said, "Do you think your son is safe?" Zod sneered more and more, his eyes revealing endless coldness. "I will find him. I will fight back and make him pay the price. I will find him. Laura, I will find him." Definitely. The trial began. General Zod and his men were stuffed into a transparent liquid. The liquid solidified and was stuffed into a spaceship. The spaceship will be sent to a subspace called the Phantom Zone. The trial ended, just like the life of Krypton. Soon after General Zod was imprisoned in the Phantom Zone, the destruction of Krypton began. At least Jor-El was right about this point. That is, the core of Krypton has long been overwhelmed, and insisting on mining will only lead to its demise. And now, facing the oppression of the Kryptonians for tens of millions of years, the angry Krypton began its own counterattack. That is, to perish together. Lara put Al's costume into a device and preserved it well, and then walked towards the outside world that was being destroyed. "Mrs. Laura, I suggest you go to the shelter as soon as possible." Faced with the suggestion of the robot butler Cola, Laura said, "Cola, there is nowhere to hide. Al is right. The end of the world has come." A stream of golden light gushed out from the ground. The mountain shook, and all the buildings were destroyed. Finally, a big crack appeared on the entire Krypton, and with a dazzling light, Krypton exploded. Everyone stared at the screen intently. This was the process of the destruction of a planet. For these Earthlings who couldn't even leave the solar system, it was extremely precious material. If there wasn't a Krypton survivor around them, they would have wanted to take out all kinds of equipment to record it all. "Brother Clark." Janitor took Clark's hand and asked, "Why don't the Kryptonians run away?" Janitor didn't understand. The Kryptonians clearly had the ability to colonize the universe, and Krypton clearly had a base, but why did they have to wait for death on Krypton? Clark smiled bitterly. How did he know? Tony Stark, indeed. I'm also very curious about this question. At Thanos Thanos, why don't you Titans run away? Thanos, it's too comfortable, just like Krypton, exactly the same. The experience of Titan is almost exactly the same as Krypton. Thanos, it's just that there is no such thing as the secret codex on Titan. Titan was also due to excessive mining and consumption of resources in the past. As for why they don't run away, some people think that the destruction of the planet is just a rumor, while others think that, although the destruction of the planet is true, why should we give up the home we have lived in for tens of millions of years, to find a new planet, and start everything from scratch? Thanos, the people are ignorant, but I'm very optimistic about Zod. At least he has the determination to make changes. Thanos, it's ironic to say that now, except for Clark himself, the remaining Kryptonians who are still alive are Zod and his group who were exiled to the Phantom Zone. Right square bracket. Chapter 579, Debate in the Screening Room, Bruce Wayne's Brainstorm. Clark felt very complicated when he saw his home planet turned into cosmic dust. Although he was sent away when he was born, he had hardly seen his home planet with his own eyes. Even in the past 10 years, he didn't know that there was a planet called Krypton in this world. Loki Odinson, what on earth is Jor-El thinking? Although his plan is reasonable in theory, it is irrational everywhere. Loki Odinson, from the previous conversation, we can see that he and Zod are in a cooperative relationship, both for the revival of Krypton, but Zod at least went to revive Krypton. But what about him? He directly stole the secret treasure of Krypton and gave it to his son, a baby. Loki Odinson, is this the so-called revival? If there is a little problem in the middle, the whole Krypton will be destroyed. And as the only Kryptonian with freedom, he can create a group of Kryptonians without freedom. What does this mean? Let a person with freedom rule a group of people without freedom. It is really a father-son relationship that moved me. Ace, don't distort the topic. Krypton's development itself has big problems. Their development is to obtain energy by squeezing the planet's core. It seems that everything is good, but in fact, it consumes the planet's own energy. The emergence of the secret code has solidified the social class. It looks like a beautiful utopia, but in fact it is a completely closed society. Zod said that he wanted to save his own race and cut off the inferior bloodline. This is just to build another identical Kryptonian society. Janitor, at least, Brother Clark took the secret code away, giving Krypton a hope. Loki Odinson, yes, the hope of making his own children king. Agwang, Krypton gives me the feeling of a distorted kingdom of light. The technology is highly developed, and the people will never worry about food, clothing, housing and transportation. Although I don't know how strong it is, at least there is no invasion by foreign enemies. But the thinking of their citizens is very solidified. Bruce Wayne, there is one more thing. What are the bases left behind? Bruce Wayne, for planets like this with the same economic model as America, there is a 90% chance that the bases left behind are used for expansion, that is, colonization. Bruce Wayne, the social class is solidified, and people have no choice when they are born. At the same time, the direction of development itself is crooked. From the information revealed before, we can fully know that they have carried out space colonization. The purpose of colonization is the core energy of other planets. Obviously, the colonists cannot cherish the colonies. We have no way of knowing what happened to those colonized planets. My inference is that the Kryptonians in Krypton society have lost hope for the continuation of their civilization, so they stopped colonial expansion. Watching the fierce debate in the screening room, Clark was a little uncomfortable. Peter said to Clark, "We often do this. Just get used to it." Looking at Clark, who nodded, Peter asked, "Mr. Clark, will you consider restoring the Kryptonian civilization when you go back now?" Hearing this, Bruce, who was suppressing Loki, couldn't help but look at Clark. You know, Clark is now on the planet of the Earth, and it is in his own country. Clark's strength even exceeded Bruce's expectations. For a while, he had no way to deal with this guy with explosive combat power, and could only temporarily put his hope in the screening room. However, he captured a message from his own video, which was Clark's biological mother, Laura's words. His cells will absorb the radiation of the yellow Sunday. He will look out of place, like a monster. His cells will absorb the radiation of the yellow sun, and then make him look like a monster. At least, from the appearance, Clark is not only not weird, but also has a masculine beauty. Moreover, the appearance of Kryptonians and Earthlings is basically the same, so it can be ruled out that the radiation of the yellow sun will cause Clark's appearance to mutate. Combined with the directly explosive combat power value, it is not difficult for Bruce Wayne to guess that it is the radiation of the yellow sun that gives Clark such terrible power. The halo of Krypton is more dim than that of the Earth. Excluding dusk, it can be guessed that the color of Krypton's sun may be orange or red. The Kryptonians did not show any strong power on Krypton. Even the gods were beaten by a scientist named Joel. Excluding the factor of not daring to use force, Bruce boldly guessed that the substances on Krypton and the red or orange sunlight would not give the Kryptonians that terrifying power. The Owl couple obviously knew that the radiation of the yellow sun could give the Kryptonians power. Krypton had colonized the universe before and must have encountered the yellow sun. Maybe some Kryptonians gained powerful power and then counterattacked Krypton. It is even possible that the secret book was born for this reason. Even the substances on Krypton and the sun on Krypton will eliminate the power of the Kryptonians. So the entire Krypton only has various technological weapons, but no strong combat power. Bruce's eyes lit up, and hundreds of plans began to take shape quickly. If some Kryptonian substances can be obtained, maybe a method can be developed to turn Clark, who can almost be called a god on Earth, into a mortal. Bruce Wayne's eyes gradually calmed down. All this is just based on theory, and still needs practice, but now there is a best way and place to practice. That is this screening. I hope that in this screening, I can find more weaknesses of the opponent. If there is a way to kill the opponent, it would be the best. Because he feels that, if nothing unexpected happens, he will have a big fight with Clark Kent, the Kryptonian, sooner or later. He must be prepared and plan to face the dangers in the future. The spaceship carrying Kal-El traveled through the universe, shuttled through the wormhole, and finally came to the Earth, to a farm in America. Many years later, on a fishing boat traveling overseas, a group of sailors were fishing, and one of the strong men with a beard looked familiar. "Isn't that you?" The sharp-eyed river god recognized Clark at a glance. Clark said with a wry smile, "For life." The iron fish cage hanging in the sky suddenly shook and fell towards the dazed Clark. A big brother in a yellow rubber suit saw that the fish cage was about to hit Clark's head, and he dived and knocked Clark to the ground to avoid the falling fish cage. "Be careful, you idiot." The big brother in yellow stood up and yelled at Clark, "Don't act like a blind man, or you'll be smashed into a meat patty." "I don't want Clark's meat sauce for dinner tonight." "Where the hell did you come from, you rookie? You idiot. We need to guard this cage now." "Okay, brothers, cheer up. Don't be like this rookie. Hold on to the deck. Hold on to the deck." That was the first mate of the fishing boat, a good man with a good heart. Clark explained, "I heard someone calling for help, so I was stunned. And on the ship, the captain received a distress signal. Someone is calling for help from the drilling rig to the west." Just then, the helicopter of the coast rescue team also came over. "All civilian ships evacuate. The underwater valve is out of control, and the drilling rig is about to explode. What should we do with the people trapped inside?" "Don't worry about it, they can't survive." Hearing this, the first mate said to Clark, "Rookie, bring me my telescope." "Rookie?" At this moment, Clark, who had stripped off his upper body, was reinstalling the fallen oil tank. Faced with the iron plates that kept falling and still burning, Clark acted as if he didn't feel anything at all. After quickly completing the installation, he immediately rushed to where there were still people. "Don't you feel any pain?" "No." Clark said, "I'm quite strong and my skin is quite tough, so that level of fall is not a problem for me." "Why did you take off your clothes?" Facing Janitor's innocent question, Clark scratched his head helplessly and said, "The clothes are not fireproof. The rubber suit is issued by the ship. If it burns, I will have to pay for it." At this moment, Bruce Wayne suddenly had the idea of whether he could hire the other party to be his bodyguard. At least, as a bodyguard, he doesn't have to spend money to buy uniforms, and the salary is definitely higher than fishing. Clark led his men out of the sea of fire and came to the helipad. The rescue helicopter that was about to leave hurried over. Seeing that the elevated iron frame was about to fall, Clark stepped forward and held up the falling high-speed iron frame with both hands. Seeing this, Bruce Wayne couldn't help asking, "How did you manage to lift the iron frame? No matter how strong you are, it doesn't make sense that you can lift it up. The iron tower will only bend directly around the position of your hands. One of my special abilities is that I can distribute my strength evenly." Clark tried hard to explain all this, but it was really difficult for him to explain, just like it was difficult for an ordinary person to explain why his blood would flow through the blood vessels of his body. "Biological force field," Hickory said on the side. "It's normal, we all have it." "Really?" Clark's eyes lit up, and he felt that he had found his kind. At least, they were not from Earth, and they also had biological force fields. "Okay." Bruce Wayne nodded, agreed with the universal biological force field theory, and told Clark, "Your force is not in the right place. It will be easier if you change your position." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 580, Jonathan Kent, maybe you should watch them die. Clark nodded, giving up the idea of telling the other party that it was no more difficult for him to lift the iron tower than to lift an egg. Clark held the iron frame forcefully until the helicopter flew away. Then he put his hands aside and fell into the sea with the entire drilling well. The next second, a flash of white light, memories unfolded. That was Clark when he was a child. At that time, he was still in elementary school. Facing the teacher's questions, Clark seemed extremely flustered. It was not because he didn't know how to do it. He had always been a good student, but because he saw bones. Yes, teacher, classmates, the bones of everyone around. No. To be precise, it was direct perspective. Through the epidermis, directly see the internal organs. At the same time, his facial features became extremely sensitive. Clark could clearly sense the classmates' pencils hitting the table, the letters on the wall, and even the dust in the air. The panicked Clark pushed open the door and ran away, but when he left the classroom, the changes in his body did not end, but became more intense. "This was when I was a child," Clark himself said. "At that time, I first got my superpowers, and I was really scared at that time. It's completely understandable." Constantine said, "Your experience is even more terrifying than mine. I have acquired psychic abilities since I was a child. I can feel things that ordinary people can't see, and only sometimes, but yours is sudden." Young Clark hid in the storage room, plugged his ears, and closed his eyes, trying to escape from it all. But his superpowers are completely out of his control. Even with his eyes closed, he can still see and hear those things through the wall. The teacher knocked on the door, and finally when the teacher was about to open the door to come in, Clark's eyes glared and lit up red. And the door handle was also glowing red. The teacher's hand just put on the door handle and suddenly let go, and blisters appeared on her hand. "That's a heat ray," Clark explained. "I can emit very high temperature heat rays from my eyes. At that time, I was still young and my superpowers had just emerged, so I just burned the iron door handle red. It's also a good thing that I was still young and I didn't hurt anyone because of my extreme behavior." The students outside were discussing Clark. Maybe it was unintentional, or maybe they had wanted to say it for a long time. The students discussed the weird Clark one by one. "What a freak. Cribby. His parents won't let him play with us." Faced with his mother who came, Clark still didn't want to go out. "Mom, the world is too big." "Then make him smaller, concentrate, and listen to my voice." Under Martha's gentle persuasion, Clark finally opened the door. "Your superpowers bring you a lot of troubles," Magneto suddenly said, "but you shouldn't be afraid of him. This is your talent and the power you are proud of." Clark could only smile politely. Time returned to the real time. Clark ran to the shore, took some clothes from a resident on the shore, and put them on, then left. On the road, Clark fell into memories again when he saw the school bus on the road. It was on a school bus, and Clark, who was already a teenager, was still silent. As we all know, humans always like to bully those who are not sociable and silent. If the other party has something better than them, then they will bully them more and more, because they don't have it, but he has it, which makes them very unhappy. "What I don't have, why can you have it? If you have it, you are guilty. If you are guilty, we can bully you openly." Faced with the bullying of the school bully, Clark, who has long been accustomed to it, chose to remain silent. But at this moment, the school bus suddenly had a flat tire when passing a bridge, and then fell into the river. On the school bus, everyone was panicked, but Clark had a serious face, as if he was making an important decision. Finally, he smashed the glass with one punch, lifted the school bus from underwater, and lifted the entire school bus onto the riverbank. Then, he also saved the school bully who had been bullying him. "You are a kind person, Mr. Clark," Constantine said. "If it were me, I would definitely watch that kid drown. My kindness comes from my parents. They taught me and made me develop my current personality." Clark just looked at the screen quietly, looking at his adoptive father who was still there, wanting to watch for a while. "Captain America, Mr. Clark, your personality combined with your ability, you will definitely be an amazing hero." Clark Kent, "I don't dare to be a hero. I just want to live an ordinary life as an ordinary person." Logan, "To be honest, you should give a kid who bullied you a few punches, or just show some superpowers, such as super strength, so that if you lend them to courage, they won't dare to provoke you." Clark Kent, "There is no need, and my ability is actually unacceptable to the current human world." Bruce Wayne, "The situation in each world is different, so we can't generalize." Logan, "There are many mutants in your world. A person with greater strength will only be regarded as a mutant, or even not a mutant, and no one will pay attention to him. But in my world, at least before I entered the screening room, I had never heard of any superpowers. In other words, my world is a very ordinary world. In this environment, the appearance of a superpowered teenager will definitely cause an uproar." Bruce Wayne, "Just like on the screen. The video continues. The school bully who was rescued fell into the water, so he saw Clark's feat of dragging the entire school bus to the riverbank by himself. Soon, he publicized this matter. As expected, trouble came to Clark again. Martha was responsible for dealing with the parents and teachers who came, while Jonathan Kent, Clark's adoptive father, was responsible for guiding the hearts of adolescent teenagers. I really just want to help. Clark sat in the cargo bed of the pickup truck, very depressed. He really just wanted to help. I know, but we've talked about it, right? Jonathan turned his head and looked to make sure no one was following him, then said to Clark, "We've talked about it, you have to." Looking at his depressed son, Jonathan could only say, "Clark, you can't show this side of you to others." Then what should I do? Watch them die? Maybe. Faced with Clark's angry words, Jonathan gave such an answer. Your adoptive father, is he saying that you should watch them die? Clark, who was immersed in his memories, hurriedly explained when he heard this. Everyone, please listen to me. I know you may be confused and angry, but my father really has a reason for doing this. Please believe me and read on, okay? Looking at the sincere and even a little panicked Clark, everyone felt a little embarrassed. Strange said, "Don't be afraid, we have seen everything, and our ability to withstand is much stronger than you think." Chapter 581. Clark's life story is gradually revealed. The people's ability to withstand pressure far exceeded Clark's expectations. Not to mention that there was a Loki in the screening room who would come out for no reason to stimulate everyone's blood pressure. These people had seen everything, and what was missing? Clark. What is at stake is not only us, but also the lives of the people around us. Jonathan looked at his son's somewhat unbelievable eyes and said, "When the world knows your ability, everything will change. Our beliefs, our understanding of humanity, altogether." Jonathan sat next to his son and said, "Did you see the reaction of Pete's mother? She was very scared." Clark. Why? The young man's mind is pure, especially Clark, so Clark can't understand his father's words. Why be afraid of me? My uncle and your father's teaching methods seem different, but they also have similarities. Peter looked at Jonathan and his son on the screen and said with a touched heart, "What he told me is that the greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. In the end, he used his life to teach me this truth. At that time, he might have meant that I should do things according to my ability and not take those things that I'm unable to do as a psychological burden because I don't have this ability." But Peter didn't know if he was laughing. Uncle Ben didn't expect that I would have such a powerful power enough to save the world. The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. Clark nodded and said, "You can say that my father is a bit selfish. He wanted to protect me. In the end, he also used his life to teach me the principles of survival on this planet." Clark felt good. He was very lonely on the original Earth. In fact, few people could understand him except his adoptive mother. But it was different here. He could show his abilities here and would not be considered a freak. There were little sisters who regarded him as an older brother, teenagers with similar experiences, aliens from the M78 Nebula, demons sealed in hell, exorcists who were said to have offended most of the demons in hell, gods in the Asgard Palace, and mutants with weak but magical abilities. Here, he would not feel that he was an alternative at all. If possible, Clark would really like to join here. Facing the doubtful Clark, Jonathan could only explain in a gentle voice, "People are afraid of things they don't understand. Is she right? Did God make me like this? Tell me." Facing Clark's doubts, Jonathan knew that it was time to let him know the truth. So Jonathan took Clark to the farm's warehouse, which had a basement, where there was a secret that they had hidden for many years, a secret about Clark's life experience. Jonathan looked at the spaceship in front of him and said, "We thought that government officials would find us, but no one came." Jonathan also handed a piece of metal to Clark and told him, "I gave this to a metal expert. He couldn't tell the difference between this substance and couldn't even find it on the periodic table. That is to say, it doesn't belong to this world, Clark, and neither do you. You are the answer, child. The answer to whether humans are alone in the universe." "I don't want to be the answer, child. I don't blame you. This is an unbearable burden for anyone, but you are not an ordinary person, Clark, and I firmly believe in you. It's not accidental that you came here. One day, you will feel that the changes you have experienced are a wealth given to you by God. When that day comes, you must make a choice. Choose whether to stand up for humanity. Faced with his father's words, the young Clark still couldn't accept all this. He looked at his father and asked, "Can't I just live a quiet life and be your son? You are my son." Jonathan heard this and hugged Clark into his arms. No matter what, Clark was his Jonathan Kent's child. There was no doubt about that. He loved him. He loved his son, but Jonathan knew that Clark had another father, and he had to tell Clark this. But in the vast universe, you still have a biological father who gave you a name. For some reason, he sent you here. Even if it takes a lifetime, you have to find the reason for yourself. The young Clark took the metal block with the S logo, which was similar to the shape of a diamond ring, and fell into deep thought. "You have a great father," Bruce Wayne said. "This is your luck, and it is also the luck of the entire Earth." Bruce's words came from the heart. If Jonathan hadn't come to enlighten Clark, no one knew what Clark would become. If he took a detour, then the impact of a human god with bad intentions on the Earth would be unimaginable. Clark also nodded. Whenever he thought of his father, he was glad that he ended up on the Kent couple's farm. This made him a kind person who would not harm society. In a bar, Clark, who looked quite down and out, was working part-time here, before working as a sailor, or working part-time in a bar. It was all Clark's helpless move during his travels. Bruce knew that this big boy with a bright smile had traveled almost half of the world before. He seemed to be looking for something, looking for the combined video. Was he looking for something else related to his life experience? The songs sung by that big sister are so nice. Her name is Sharon. Clark said, "I worked part-time in a bar for a few days, and I got to know Sharon and the others." "Why did you have to work part-time?" "I had to make a living, and I had no money." Clark smiled bitterly. "On our planet, having no money is very troublesome. I left home to find the secret of my life experience, but it obviously cost money in the process. At that time, my superpowers had not yet fully awakened. At most, I was a little stronger than ordinary people, with stronger defense, sharper vision, and a heat ray. I also had to eat, and if I couldn't sleep, I would find a place to make do, but I couldn't save on food. I worked in a bar, collecting information and making some money at the same time. I also helped Sharon drive away a lot of drunkards who were looking for trouble." "You work so hard, can you modify the database?" "Modify what?" Chapter 582, a world where only Optimus Prime is injured. "Modify the database," Janitor said. "When I'm out playing, if I don't have money, I'll modify my personal terminal, the Kree data terminal, so that I don't lack money to spend." Loki Odinson, "Little girl, are you serious? That's the Kree Empire terminal database. Don't think I'm one of those ignorant earthlings. I've traveled to various empires. The Kree Empire is one of the 3 major empires, and its economic system is very strong. It's directly supervised by their artificial intelligence Supreme Wisdom. Can you modify that?" Janitor, just modify it, so that I have some money to spend. It's not very difficult." Thanos, wait a minute, I suddenly remembered something. Janitor, what is your father's name? Janitor, Garland, you can also call him Galactus. Thanos shuddered. The tea in Ancient One's mouth sprayed out, and Dodding cursed directly. "When did Galactus have a daughter?" Exclamation mark. "They don't know anything about such a big thing!" Exclamation mark. But then they were relieved when they thought that Janitor might come from a different universe. The universe they called the Avengers had several parallel universes. It was too common for Galactus to have a daughter. Galactus' daughter. Thanos was speechless. Galactus' daughter. Galactus' daughter. Why didn't I think of this before? Asgard Temple. Odin looked at the cute and well-behaved little girl on the screen, wearing a white dress, like a pure angel. He couldn't connect her with Galactus, the guy who randomly selected victims in the universe, and ate the planets all day long. In his inherent impression, even if Galactus had a child, it would be similar to his style, wearing an ugly purple armor, and looking for planets to eat all over the universe. But this little girl is really good at eating. But this appetite is just so-so for Odin. Although the little girl has been eating, Since she entered the screening room, the amount of food she eats is just the normal amount of an Asgardian berserker. This is normal. There are so many strange races in the universe. It is normal for a girl to be particularly gluttonous. Okay, maybe her true form is some kind of ferocious beast, but she is even more ferocious than the beast, and she simply overwhelmed Odin. Moreover, Odin looked at the cute and well-behaved janitor and thought about the three in his family. The eldest rebelled and was sentenced to life imprisonment by him. The second, a fool, was good at being a general and fighting in wars, but he was definitely not good at governing a country. Fortunately, he started to learn now, although he estimated that he would definitely not see it in his lifetime. The third, this idiot, is smart, studious, and has the most important thing for a king, an extremely flexible moral bottom line. It's a pity that they are not his biological children. Ancient One smacked her lips. She didn't expect that Galactus, one of the 5 great gods, actually had a daughter. Unlike Odin, the reckless man who had a fight with Galactus, Ancient One had no interest in Galactus. That guy would not lend his power to Ancient One, and Ancient One could not ask him to borrow power by force. Although his backers were Vishanti and Eternity, Galactus was in the same camp as them. He was half his superior, so he could not just make harassing phone calls and borrow power from him without paying back. The main thing was that he could not default on his debt. After Ancient One reported the matter, his retirement went from being within reach to being far away. If he offended Galactus, his half superior, he would not be able to retire in this life. Video continues. Clark heard someone chatting in the bar, saying that the Moldy army had found some strange things in Ellesmere, and there were reconnaissance planes hovering in the sky 24 hours a day. You mean the rat hole? Are you kidding me? I know, I can't believe it either, but there are a lot of Americans there. Any other information? They call that thing an unidentified object or something like that. Clark, who wanted to continue listening, suddenly saw one of his friends being harassed by a middle-aged wretched old man, and walked over and pushed away the other's dirty hands. Don't do that, buddy. Faced with Clark's kind words of persuasion, the other party started to threaten him directly. Really? Then what are you going to do, young man? Otherwise I can only ask you to leave. Ha 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 ha. Clark's kind words of persuasion naturally triggered the other party's bad words. I think I will only leave when I want to. Then, the other party directly poured the wine on Clark's face, and then poured it down from his head. Faced with the other party's bullying, Clark said nothing. The other party is a local gangster, who is not good at other things, but is very good at bullying the weak, and fearing the strong. Seeing Clark let himself be poured without saying a word, he was even more certain that the other party was a coward and was ready to attack after pouring the wine. Okay, now we can see that the gangster pushed forward. Clark did not move, and the gangster was pushed back a few steps by the force and then showed a puzzled expression. Okay. Although the kind-hearted Clark was angry, he did not lose his temper. He just silently pulled his friend away. At this time, the other party began to provoke again without knowing the consequences. Okay, now everyone can see that, in order to regain his ridiculous face, the gangster threw the can in his hand towards Clark. The other party's reach was good, at least the hit rate was good. Okay, Clark was hit on the back by the can. What should he do now? Exclamation mark. Is he going to fight back, Clark? Oh, Clark turned around and left, a coward. Shut up. Don't make trouble. Bruce scolded. Diana Prince, he obviously regards your tolerance as weakness. This is a provocation to you, Clark. Thanos, you should give it a good beating. This kind of blind tolerance will only encourage the other party's arrogance. You can completely control your own strength. Use the power that ordinary people can accept to beat him up and make him subdue. It will not hinder your hiding identity and can also teach them a lesson. Clark Kent, after all, hitting people is not good. I will be in big trouble if I hit people with my identity. Logan, you don't have to be afraid. Fighting in the bar is too normal. Fighting because of drinking too much, because of jealousy of women, or even fighting because of dislike, no one will care about your situation. Besides, they won't call the police. If they call the police for such things, they don't have to hang around in the bar. They will become a shame on the whole street. Bruce Wayne, I think Mr. Clark's approach is still right. Logan, bullshit. In this case, you should take action. Even if you are just an ordinary person, you are more than one size bigger than him. You are tall and strong, and you can beat him with the strength of ordinary people, so why are you afraid? Bruce Wayne looked at the barrage and felt a headache, fearing that Clark would be irritated. Clark smiled helplessly, and there seemed to be a little bit of satisfaction in his smile. Clark Kent, I didn't do anything. I also have a temper. Logan, you beat him up later? Clark Kent, no, my power can't be used on ordinary people after all. Logan, then what are you talking about? Clark Kent, after get off work, Peter Parker, drag him to the alley, and beat him up. Clark Kent, no, I didn't. The video continues. On the screen, the gangster walked out of the bar happily after drinking. Then he saw his beloved car, a truck head of the same model as Optimus Prime, was cut into 8 pieces, torn into pieces, and there was no complete body. Clark Kent, I smashed his car. Strange, who was very close to Clark, could clearly hear a feeling of relief, and a bit of suppressed laughter in Clark's tone. Seeing the whole screen full of well done, Bruce's expression was extremely complicated, and finally he followed suit, and posted well done. This story tells us that stupidity is contagious and assimilated. On the ice field, a helicopter slowly landed. A woman got off the plane. Lois Lane, reporter from the Daily Planet. Come to this icy place, just to report on the unidentified object. After a chat, Louise came to the camp, where she saw the images detected by the military. Although the ice shelf seriously interfered with the echo detection, they were sure that there was definitely something in that place. Could it be a former Soviet nuclear submarine? Unlikely. That place is 300 meters deep, and it is much larger than anything we know of that era. The ice around that place has a history of nearly 20,000 years. And Clark also mixed into the exploration team. How did you manage to sneak into an exploration team of this level? Clark explained. I learned a lot, and I went there with the Daily Planet. At night, Louise completely ignored the military's warnings and began to explore on her own. Although someone had warned her that the temperature here at night was minus 40 degrees Celsius, if she froze to death outside, she would not be found until the beginning of next spring. Louis took a photo outside, in which there was a man running outside wearing only a small vest. Louis Liu and Hoke Lane looked at the man in the photo and said to himself, where are you going? Do you think a normal human can run around the Arctic in a white vest in an environment of minus 40 degrees Celsius? I suddenly wanted to release the Black Robe Patrol. Chapter 583, the rich man said, I bought all those companies. Normal people wouldn't stay up late at night and take a camera out to take photos everywhere in the snow at minus 40 degrees. Clark felt wronged. How could he know that someone would stay up late at night and take photos with a camera, and he happened to take photos of himself? Louis followed Clark all the way. It was not known whether Clark turned off his super hearing or was concentrating on the unidentified object. In short, he didn't notice that there was a little tail following him. The cave here doesn't look like it was formed naturally but was man-made, so it must lead to somewhere. This is Louis' idea. It turns out that Louis' idea is correct. This entire tunnel was dug by humans, and the person who started it was none other than Clark. And Clark's way of digging the tunnel was also very simple and crude, that is, using the red high temperature laser emitted from his eyes to directly melt the ice blocking the road. Clark went all the way and finally came to the spaceship and put the metal block with the S logo that he had been carrying with him into the hole of a machine. The next second, the whole machine started to start. It turned out to be a huge spaceship. Inside was full of machines that Clark couldn't understand at all, and there were 2 mummies. At this time, Clark finally found Louise, who followed him here because a certain reporter who was seeking freedom came in and took pictures everywhere. He successfully triggered the protection system of the guard robot in the spaceship. The robot flew in front of Louise. Seeing this, Louise still took pictures of the robot without knowing whether to live or die. She might have regarded this ordinary looking robot as a robot to welcome guests. But before Clark took out the metal rod to show her identity, she was beaten by this defense robot as an intruder. You, a reporter, might be beaten to death. Louise's scream attracted Clark. Although this thing was rounded off as his own property, Clark still crushed the robot into scrap metal without hesitation. Clark threw the robot aside and then had to comfort the panicked Louise. After Louise's emotions gradually calmed down, Clark told Louise about her current situation. Your body is bleeding. If I don't use high temperature to burn the wound, to stop the bleeding, how did you? Clark didn't know whether Louis wanted to ask him how he knew that he was bleeding in his internal organs, or where he could find the high temperature for surgery. He could only tell Louis, I can do what others can't do. Hold my hand tightly, it will hurt. After saying that, Clark lowered his head and his eyes lit up red. Seeing this, Louis screamed as if he was parasitized by an alien. After all, from a distance, this perspective has a bit of the flavor of a thriller. Outside, the entire snow-capped mountain began to shake violently. In the officer's confused face, a spaceship broke out of the ice and flew directly into the sky. It was not until the next day that the rescue team found Louis on an ice surface. No one knew how Louis could lie on the snow for a night at a low temperature of -40°C and still be fine. But when Louis brought all the information here back to the newspaper, the editor-in-chief didn't want to report it at all. I can't help you, Louise. Everything you said may be half of your hallucination. The editor-in-chief said, let alone anything else. The fact that you slept in the snow for half a night in a low temperature environment of -40°C is itself very strange. I don't mean to offend you, but I suggest you go to the hospital for a checkup. As for the spaceship, just let it go. The Department of Defense doesn't admit that there is any ship at all. Of course they don't admit it. They never admit anything. When has the Department of Defense ever admitted anything? Louise said excitedly, please Perry, I'm the one who published the article. I'm a journalist who has won the Pulitzer Prize. Pulitzer, the Nobel Prize in journalism. Then act like it. If you don't publish it, I'll leave. Faced with Louise's threat to resign, the editor-in-chief directly showed her what it meant to be a mountain higher than a mountain, and directly took out the contract to talk about it. Seeing that Louis had no other options, the editor-in-chief said, I will not publish a report about aliens living among us, never. Actually, editor-in-chief Perry did a good job. Bruce Wayne said, although Louis' idea of publishing the true information to the public is indeed correct, he still did not consider the consequences. Once the existence of that spaceship is confirmed, let alone the turmoil in the entire human society, at least Clark's life will definitely not be as simple as finding a few detectives to investigate like I did. Editor-in-chief Perry is leaving a way out for everyone. Louis, his own, the military, and Clark's. But I don't think that reporter Louise is the kind of person who will give up easily. Peter said, I think she is very persistent and cares about her responsibility as a reporter, which is to present the truth to the public. Of course she is not. Bruce said, she later posted all the news on a news website. But how come I didn't know anything about it? Clark said that, although he didn't care much about the news, if there was really news of this level, how could he not know anything about it? I bought that website. Bruce said calmly, as if he was talking about what he was going to eat tonight. Didn't she submit articles to other websites? Bruce Wayne raised his eyebrows and asked, guess how many news companies have been added to the Wayne Group these days? Peter and Clark looked at each other, their eyes revealing indignation at the rich people's unconscious display of wealth. Can you do whatever you want if you have money? Video continues. After being rejected by the editor-in-chief, Louis did not give up. Instead, he found the person in charge of a website and told him all the information and asked him to send it out. But didn't you once describe my website as a malignant tumor that spreads lies? Faced with the words of the website director, Louise said bluntly, my evaluation of you remains the same. Would burn. But I want this story to see the light of day. Because I want that mysterious man to know that I know the truth. I actually couldn't quite understand why Louise would say such a thing. If she said that she wanted the world to know the truth, it would be fine, but these words always gave me a feeling of provoking Superman. Chapter 584, Sons of Krypton and Sons of Earth. In an iceberg in the Arctic Ocean, a polar bear is foraging, and in the distance is a spaceship covered with snow. But this does not prevent the polar bear from foraging, just as the polar bear will not prevent it from restarting. Recursive program diagnosis completed. Navigation authority confirmed. All systems are operating normally. Clark looked at everything in the spaceship. He knew that the secret of his life experience might be solved in this spaceship, although this spaceship came more than 18,000 years earlier than himself. At this time, the door of the cockpit started, and a figure walked in. "I'm so glad to see you grow up. It would be great if Laura could see it with her own eyes." Looking at the man who suddenly appeared in front of him, Clark was full of questions. "Who are you?" "I'm your father, Carl." Clark was a little confused by what the man said, but he still chose to listen, not only because it was related to his life experience, but also had a lot to do with Clark's personality. If it was a certain leasing Minkingshan man, he would be waiting for this sentence. "I'm your grandfather." You can also say that I'm his shadow and his consciousness. "My name is Jor-El." I thought this was Jor-El's projection video, but this level of intelligence. It can only be said that the level of artificial intelligence on Krypton is relatively high. It's no big deal. Tony said, "Before on Krypton, there were many artificial intelligence butlers. My artificial intelligence butler Jarvis, as long as I want, can make him reach the level of thinking of ordinary people. I, Jor-El, can completely create an artificial intelligence like him according to my own consciousness framework, and then leave him on this spaceship. He will only appear when his son, Clark, comes." Kal-El. Jor-El called out the name they gave Clark. Facing this man who might be the consciousness of his biological father, Clark told him that he now has many questions. "Where did I come from? Why did you send me here?" Hearing Clark ask the second of the three major questions in life, a large number of gray metal particles appeared behind Jor-El. "You come from Krypton, where the environment is much worse than that of Earth." As Jor-El spoke, the golden particles behind him turned into a planet, and then continued to change. A long time ago, in that era of expansion, our race spread across the stars, looking for new worlds to migrate to. The metal particles changed again, turning into a man and a woman, followed by a group of expeditions. Countless spacecraft were launched into the universe, and this is one of them. We set up outposts on other planets, and designed large machines to transform the environment according to our needs. The metal particles changed again. This time, the environmental transformation machine that appeared was transforming the core of a planet, and next to the environmental transformation machine was a Kryptonian wearing a spacesuit. In the next 100,000 years, our civilization prospered and created many miracles. The metal particles finally transformed into a prosperous Kryptonian civilization. What happened next? Clark pondered for a moment, and continued to ask. Population control. Thanos. If you talk about this, I won't be sleepy anymore. Although he is now wandering around the universe, it doesn't mean that Thanos has given up his dream. On the contrary, he has made countless plans. As long as there is an opportunity, these plans will take root and sprout instantly. Thanos heard that the Kryptonians also encountered similar problems, and carried out population control. He was eager to know how Krypton, which had a very similar experience, did it. The metal particles behind him turned into a man and a woman. They were holding a semicircular sphere together. There was a baby inside. This was the prototype of the creation chamber. Abandoned outpost for space exploration. We have consumed natural resources, causing the core of the planet to become unstable. Finally, our military leader, General Zod, attempted a coup. This time, it was Zod's head and a large number of Zod's troops that appeared. But it was too late. Your mother and I both foresaw the impending doomsday, so we took certain measures to ensure your survival. A baby was put into an escape capsule by a man and a woman, and then the escape capsule was loaded into a spaceship. The spaceship set off, and flew to the endless sea of stars. This is the creation chamber. Jor-El brought Clark to a creation chamber and said, "All Kryptonians are born here. Every child is given a different mission before birth. Workers, warriors, leaders, etc. Your mother and I believe that Krypton lacks some necessary element, that is, the factor of choice, contingency. If a child is unwilling to stick to the role assigned to him or her by society, if a child desires to achieve greater achievements, you are the embodiment of that belief, Carl. Thanos. It seems that Krypton's method is not as good as I thought. Wanda, are you still insisting on your theory of massacre? Thanos. Of course not, although I don't know what is better, but there is obviously a better way than my previous one. Why don't I change? Thanos. But I don't think Krypton's approach is a good approach. It is more like an old man extending his life, rather than a teenager who is moving towards a better direction. Wanda, I'm really shocked to hear you say this. Are you really Thanos? Strange. Anyway, as long as you are willing to correct your mistakes, it is a great thing. As for the method, we can always think of it. Thanos. That's right. I have thought a lot during this period. If I just want to control the population, I can do it now, at least on 1 or 2 planets, but this is not enough. Obviously not enough. I'm still thinking about a better way. The video continues. You are the first child born naturally on Krypton in hundreds of years, so we took such a big risk to save you. Why don't you come with me? Faced with the questioning of his own child, Jor-El's consciousness obviously showed a sad look like the real Jor-El. We can't come, Carl. No matter how much we want to, no matter how much we love you, your mother Laura and I, like Zod, are failures in our world. Our fate has ended. So I'm alone. No, you are a child of Krypton, and also a child of this planet. You can gather the essence of both worlds. Your mother and I have protected this dream with our lives. The iron door behind them suddenly opened, and a set of uniforms appeared in front of Clark under the light. Brother Clark, this is the clothes you are wearing. Yes. Clark sat on the sofa and nodded. This clothes was the item that made him feel Krypton the most, and it was also the channel for him to feel his identity as a son of Krypton. It is true that people on Earth are very different from us, but I believe this is a good thing. They will not necessarily make the same mistakes as us. As long as you guide them, Carl, as long as you give them hope. This is the meaning of this symbol. The meaning of the family emblem of the L family is hope. Hope. Bruce looked at the S on Clark's chest and thought to himself, not necessarily instead of definitely not. Jor-El, you underestimated the Earthlings. Without Kal-El, the Earthlings can still get hope on their own. That hope contains the belief that human nature is good, and you can give them all of this. Do you want to listen to your father? Bruce asked suddenly. Clark was stunned, and then understood what Bruce meant. Wayne, I'm the son of Krypton, but I'm also the son of Earth. I have 2 sets of parents, Jor-El and Laura, and Jonathan, Kent and Martha. I'm the child of 2 planets. I'm just a person, not a god. I hope so. After watching so many live broadcasts, Bruce was more certain of one thing, that is, even if it is a god, if it is killed, it will die. Even as powerful as Manhattan, it will be injured. When facing the Hell card, the screening room will also give a hint that the card may be fatal. Even the screening room is not necessarily invincible. If there really is a day when they need to fight each other, he will definitely ask Clark in person, will you die? Image continues. The door of the spaceship slowly opens. Under the strong sunlight outside, a tall figure wearing a blue battlesuit and a red robe slowly walks out of the spaceship. The cold wind blows on Clark's face, and the previous conversation is still echoing in his mind. Why am I different from them? The star of the Earth is younger and brighter than that of Krypton. Your cells absorb its rays, and strengthen your strength, skin, and senses. The gravity of the Earth is weaker, but the nutrients in the atmosphere are more. You are much stronger than I believe. If you want to know how strong you are, you can only constantly challenge your limits. Clark slowly walked to the middle of the snow. He raised his head and looked at the blue sky. He was doing something he wanted to do for a long time, but had never done. The ground cracked and snowflakes splashed. A red and blue figure leaped up. He took hundreds of meters in one step. He kept falling and jumping up. He raised his arms high and looked up at the sky. Finally, he succeeded. He learned to fly. At this moment, Clark smiled like a child. Chapter 585, Leader or Shield? You can fly just by jumping? You should have mastered flying by now. Yes. Clark looked at the husky who was smiling like a husky who felt the beauty of destroying a house for the first time, and a trace of shyness flowed on the face of the big boy. Because he was going to be embarrassed next. Boom. Clark Kent, the result of his first flight was a successful crash and smashing a mountain. Peter went up and patted Clark on the shoulder and said, "It's okay, it's normal, too normal. Did you fall down the first time you flew?" "No, I mean the plane crash is too normal. We often saw people crashing before." Peter said, "The first time I flew was to deal with an alien beast. I brought it to the school playground and dealt with it. At that time, I was busy dealing with the alien beast, and I didn't feel anything special. It may be because my ability to fly comes from the light given by Ultraman Noah. Flying is like eating and drinking for me, nothing special. I really envy you. It took me a lot of effort to fully master this ability. Your ability is your own, unlike mine. My ability was lent to me by Ultraman Noah. We each have our own merits." Clark climbed out of the big pit. The crash just now obviously did not cause any major damage to him. Even his hairstyle remained perfect. "You have to lead the people of Earth forward." Jor-El's words were still echoing in Clark's mind. "They will follow closely behind you. They will stumble. They will fall. But one day, they will bathe in the same sunshine with you, Carl. One day, you will help them create a miracle." This feels like what Zoffi said to Captain Sakumu. Peter said, Zoffi said at the time, that he was looking forward to the day when he and humans could travel together in the universe and the stars. Before that day comes, Ultraman will be the strongest shield for the Earth. Your father probably wants you to become a leader who leads the people of Earth forward. Hikari said to Clark, "What about you? What do you think?" "Leader." Clark lowered his head and said, "I thought about it at first, but now I think what Captain Zoffi said is more suitable for me. I would rather be a shield to protect mankind. Being a leader is too difficult for me. It's the best that you have this idea." Constantine said, "What is the situation of human beings? I believe you have known it from your past experiences. Human beings have been fighting internal wars and cannot choose a suitable leader. It is even more impossible for them to accept an alien as a leader, especially when this alien is stronger than them, but just a little bit stronger. They will only turn into greedy demons and eat you clean." Holy Lord. Correction. We demons are not as greedy as humans. Looking at Clark, Bruce's psychological state is just like his fists that clench and unclench, clench and unclench, like a roller coaster up and down. The video continues. Looking at the sun in the sky, Clark closed his eyes lightly, half knelt on the ground, and gently clenched a fist on the ground. The surrounding stones and snowflakes began to shake, and the earth began to tremble. This time, Clark successfully took off and soared into the sky. No longer relying on strength to jump, but really flew up. Clark flew through the clouds, over the snow, and came to the African savanna. It was not difficult to shock the zebras. Then he flew across the strait, splashing a white streak on the sea, and shuttled through the mountains. Finally, he soared into the sky and directly broke through the atmosphere. "So strong?" Peter said with some surprise. "Although I know that I can fly out of the atmosphere, I have never tried it, let alone fly so fast. When I just started to master the ability to fly, at that time, I was so excited." On the other side, Louise was still trying to find Clark. She knew that if she wanted to find a person who had been hiding his traces all his life, she had to start from everything related to him. For example, his friends. Obviously, as a Pulitzer-winning reporter, Louise had a strong ability to find clues and successfully found some of Clark's friends. From his friends, Louise found more clues and heard more people's comments on Clark. For some people, he is a guardian angel, and for others, Clark's whereabouts are weird. Following the clues, Louise successfully found a key person. Peace Ross. Oh my god. Clark was shocked. This female reporter named Louise was so good at finding people. That person looks so familiar. That's Ross, the classmate who bullied me when I rescued the school bus. Finally, Louise successfully found a farm. Finally, Clark met Louise in a cemetery. Clark was really shocked by the perseverance of this woman. She actually found her hometown all the way from the metropolis, or more accurately, from the Arctic Ocean. You look shocked. I really didn't expect it. It might be because of Mr. Wayne's actions. I didn't see Louise in my world. In fact, if you hadn't come to find me, you would have seen her soon. Bruce Wayne told Clark the news about Louise without reservation, after I acquired a large number of news-related newspapers that were willing to publish her report about you. She not only didn't stop, but instead became more persistent in looking for your traces. Now it's almost time. Why? Maybe she thinks that I have some secret deal with aliens. Bruce Wayne said, they always have all kinds of conspiracy theories. As the richest family in the world, it is normal for the Wayne family to be suspected, especially since I first acquired various satellite-related companies and then acquired a large number of newspapers to block the news about Clark and the spacecraft. Of course, she would think there is some conspiracy in all this. You also acquired satellite and aerospace companies? Mainly because I have seen some stories about aliens invading the Earth before, and I plan to take precautions. Bruce Wayne said, can you imagine the scene of 2,000 space battleships being blown up by water droplets? Clark. Seeing Clark, Louis rushed over and started to fire questions like a string of cannonballs. Chapter 586, Young Clark. Where are you from? What are you doing here? Let me make your story public. Faced with the other party's rude and aggressive attitude, Clark just said calmly, what if I don't want to be exposed to the public? Sooner or later, someone will take a photo of you, or guess where you live. Then I'll disappear again. You want to disappear forever? The only way is to stop helping humans, but this should not be your choice. My father once believed that, if the world knew of my existence and my true origins, they would fear me and exclude me. Janitor looked at the aggressive Louis on the screen and said, she makes me feel so disgusted. This is the first person that Janitor has publicly expressed his dislike for. Thanos, you are too kind. Facing the Earthlings, your overly kind character is destined to suffer. Clark Kent, I believe someone will understand me. Logan, no, facing that kind of person, you can only use one method to make her wake up, that is your fist. Bruce Wayne, fists are even worse. Do you still remember Cov? Exclamation mark. Why did Cov choose to sacrifice himself in the end? It was because he knew that violence would only make it more difficult for the Earthlings who were already afraid of him to accept other aliens. Holy Lord. So he died miserably, and died without a complete body. Loki Odinson, humans are a race that can only be tamed with violence and blood. Your kindness will only become their target of oppression. Listen to me, Clark. Do you still remember what your father said? You should use your power to conquer humans, and lead humans to finally use the creation chamber in the secret book on Earth, to build a brand new Krypton. Clark Kent, no, I will not accept your advice no matter what. Mr. Loki. Clark was helpless. He went to Bruce Wayne, and went to the reporter for the same reason. It was just because Bruce Wayne's identity was even too powerful that he had to take it seriously, instead of meeting in plain clothes as on the screen. And he also noticed that the billionaire's eyes never left him. If he did something radical, he was not sure that the billionaire from Gotham would do anything radical. If he had absolute confidence in his own strength before, now he once again recognized this world. There are so many worlds. In their casual conversation, Clark quickly understood the single universe, the multiverse, and the world above. When he learned that there were those terrifying existences that could destroy an entire universe, his mentality became more peaceful. He might be able to destroy a planet, but Mr. Hickory from the M78 Nebula told him that they had a lot of this power, and they didn't need to be like him. Just a so-called light skill could blow up a planet or even a star. There is also the Emperor Star who sealed the entire sun in a thought, the evil god Gotangia who plunged the earth into endless darkness, and the infinite Ultron who killed all life in the universe. The Thanos in the live broadcast room of the screening room is said to have an isotope who destroyed half of the life in the universe with a snap of his fingers. Dr. Manhattan has even been promoted to a high-dimensional life form, manipulating particles and modifying the timeline. And one of Mr. Strange's isotopes has also done similar things. These are all what he heard in casual chats. There will only be more unknown powerful existences. Clark, who is already humble, is now more certain that his power is only a drop in the ocean in the real infinite multiplicity. If he is complacent, because of this little power, it will only add to the jokes and make people laugh. And according to Peter, the billionaire is also one of the first members to enter the screening room. He has more seniority than him, and he has also drawn many powerful weapons, maybe one of which can kill him. It is said that the people in Gotham City are a little mentally abnormal, so he should be careful. The video continues. I'm tired of staying in the greenhouse. Young Clark made his request to his father who was driving. I just want to do something meaningful. Are you saying that spring plowing and autumn harvest are meaningless? I didn't say that. Our family has been farmers for 5 generations. Faced with his old father's words, Clark said directly, it's your family, not mine. I don't know why I should listen to your preaching. You are not my biological father. You just happened to pick me up in the field. Martha finally couldn't listen anymore and interrupted Clark with a scolding. It's okay, Martha. Clark is right. We are not your biological parents. Jonathan said as he drove. But we tried our best. We have always felt so. So maybe what we think is best is not what you need. To be honest, I regret it. Clark looked at himself arguing with his father and what was going to happen next, and the smile on his face was gone. He said, I was very rebellious at that time and didn't listen to my father. To be honest, I regret it and want to apologize to him. No one spoke. They all saw the place where Louis and Clark met. It was a cemetery, and on the tombstone, where Louis was at the time, the name engraved was Jonathan Kent. I understand how you feel, man. Tony said seriously, you're not even rebellious. I was much more rebellious at that time. Quarrels and backtalks were commonplace. I even had a cold war with my dad for half a month. My dad is a person. In fact, my personality and many aspects of me are perfectly inherited from him, including my temper. Even with my mother mediating, our relationship is not very good. Even when we met for the last time, let alone hugging, I didn't say a word to him. Many times, only after experiencing it can you understand what it feels like. No matter how much others say, it is impossible to understand that feeling. Only by experiencing it yourself can you understand it. The most precious feeling of human beings is empathy. Clark's experience is not actually a screening for many people in the screening room, but something they have experienced more or less. As someone said before, when the screening room invites people to join the group, they always like to pick some problem children or those with incomplete family structures. The death of the father is just the basics, and the death of both parents is just an advanced level. The top one is Peter, whose parents are both dead, and his uncle, who is like his father, has also passed away. The rest is to add buffs on these foundations. The video continues. Words of sincerity are always the most touching. For a teenager like Clark, who is soft-hearted, kind-hearted, honest, and just happened to be in the rebellious period, a sincere word can beat countless blows and scoldings. After hearing his father's words, Clark no longer looked rebellious, but due to the rebellious psychology of the rebellious period, Clark did not want to bow to his father easily, so he could only bow his head and pretend to be deep and said, "Listen, Dad." Wait. Jonathan interrupted Clark. He found something wrong. The father and son got out of the car to check, only to see dark clouds in the distance, lightning and thunder, and wind and clouds. Tornado. Hide under the overpass. Quick. Clark took his mother and fled quickly, while Jonathan stayed behind to direct the crowd to evacuate. He had experienced more than one tornado, and knew that when a disaster strikes, if no one is in charge, most people will just be like headless flies in a mess. If someone comes out to direct, most of the panicked people will subconsciously follow the command, as if they have found a leader. Therefore, as long as the commander is in charge properly, many more people can be saved. Over there. Follow them. Go over there. Jonathan stayed behind to organize the panicked crowd to start taking refuge. Just when everyone hid under the overpass, Martha remembered that Hank, their dog, was still in the car. Western culture is different from ours. In the West, dogs have a high status in the family and are like family members. This is the difference between Chinese and Western cultures, so don't think it is unreasonable for Superman's father to risk his life to save the dog. Clark wanted to save the dog, but Jonathan handed the child in his arms to Clark and turned to save Hank. Although Clark has already shown his extraordinary ability, and although Clark's strength and speed are far superior to Jonathan's, Jonathan still chooses to take the risk himself. Why? Because he is a father. Clark's father. No father would choose to let his child take the risk. Clark hid in the bridge hole with the child in his arms, while Jonathan risked being swept away by the tornado to go back and rescue Hank. But it was too late. When Jonathan got to the car, the tornado had already arrived. Jonathan had no time to escape, so he could only hide in the car with Hank in his arms. Seizing the last chance, Jonathan let Hank out and fell to the ground, spraining his foot. Seeing that the tornado had already reached his father's side, Clark couldn't help it. He ran to his father's side. He had the strength and super strength to save his father. But, looking at Clark who was about to rush over, Jonathan slowly raised one hand. Clark understood what Jonathan meant, and he wouldn't let himself go. The storm was coming, and Jonathan knew that his time was up. His face was unusually calm. He looked at Clark lightly, with the corners of his mouth curled up, leaving Clark with a last smile. Seeing Clark and his father arguing, I suddenly had some insights. Clark was dissatisfied with Jonathan letting him work in the greenhouse, which was similar to my desire to write a novel, but my family was more inclined to let me take the teacher exam. Moreover, we both have a good father. My father did not stop me or belittle my achievements. He recognized me and said that I grew up and succeeded, and that I still succeeded despite their obstacles. Really, I suddenly felt less blocked in my heart. Later, my father told me that he would let me study for 4 hours a day for the teacher qualification certificate. For the first time, I did not perfunctorily, but thought about it seriously, and finally agreed. I have always disliked people persuading me, because you haven't experienced my experience. What do you say? But seeing Clark's experience, I really don't know how to express it in words. But really, oh, shit, I really can't say it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 587, The Kryptonian Visitor. Dad. With Clark's cry of grief, Jonathan's figure disappeared into the boundless black tornado. I couldn't even apologize to him. Clark didn't dare to look up at this scene. He put his head deep down and looked directly at his legs, even though he had become infinitely powerful. No one asked Clark why Jonathan didn't let him save him. Everyone knew that Clark was feeling very uncomfortable now. I watched my father die because I believed in him, because he believed deeply. I have to wait. This world can't tolerate me. What do you think? Clark really hopes that he can travel through time and go back to the past, even if I can't do anything, even if I can only have a word with my father, even if I just let myself apologize to him and say I'm sorry. Louie returned to the newspaper office, and her colleagues told her to be careful. Her editor-in-chief Perry was waiting to cause trouble for her. Amidst the gloating laughter and whispers of his colleagues, Louie walked into Perry's office without hesitation. I told you not to publish. Look what you did. As soon as he entered the office, Perry's scoldings hit Louie overwhelmingly. You asked Woodburn to post this on the internet, and now the publisher wants me to sue you. If it can be redeemed, I give up. Perry's whole body was filled with emotion after hearing this. He was stunned for a moment. He knew very well what kind of character Louie was. He broke the casserole and asked for the truth. He bumped his head against the south wall and never looked back. Even if he wanted to smash the south wall and walk over or knock himself to death there. It's that simple. Perry asked, where are your clues? It's that simple. There are no clues. It's meaningless. The whole story is false. Suspended for 2 weeks. No salary. This is your punishment. If you dare to do it again, it will not be that simple. Okay. Everyone can see that Perry is protecting his shortcomings. This situation requires a full prosecution. Since you promised so happily, you should not suspend the work for 3 weeks. Perry. No. I believe you saw something, Louis. Perry took off his eyes and said, but I don't believe that your clues were cut off like that. But no matter what the reason is for you to give up, I believe that you did the right thing. Why? It's Louis' turn to be confused now. Can you imagine how people would react if they learned that such people existed on Earth? This editor-in-chief Perry is a sensible person. Bruce Wayne looked at the screen. I would consider giving him a raise when I go back, Perry said. I think he initially prevented Lewis from publishing that report because he knew how much social unrest it would cause if it was published. Bruce Wayne said, the Daily Planet is a very important newspaper, and Louis himself is a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter. These two identities combined are very important. Even if it is only a part of the people, I believe it will cause a lot of social unrest and riots. On the other side, Clark returned home and just hugged his mother. A reporter has come. She is a friend. Don't worry. Clark and Martha walked side by side in the sunshine. Clark told Martha with excitement that he knew about them. Who? My biological parents. My people. I know where I come from. That's really great. Martha's expression was a little complicated. While thinking about the child, she was happy to find a place to belong to, but she was worried that she would lose her child. But maternal love is selfless. Martha still cheered up and sent blessings to her child. Clark, I'm so happy for you. Clark looked a little confused. The strange Martha asked with a smile on her face. What's wrong? When you were a child, I lay next to your cradle at night and listened to your breathing quietly. Martha told him. You had difficulty breathing. You struggled, and I was always worried. Are you afraid that the truth will be exposed? No, the truth about you is actually beautiful. As soon as we saw you, we got it. Martha patted Clark on the shoulder and said, we all know that one day, the whole world will see this. I'm just worried that they will take you away from me. I can feel that your parents love you very much, Clark. No matter you are a son of Krypton or a son of Earth. You are really lucky and happy, Clark. Clark nodded. They all feel that they are very lucky, not because of their own abilities, but because of their parents. My mother was very worried at the time, worried about me leaving. Clark said, Bruce, that's when I heard your voice of finding a private investigator discussing me a few kilometers away. Can't you turn off your super hearing? It can't be turned off. I can only adapt to it. Clark said, as time goes by, I will get used to it. This is the timeline we have experienced. As for what will happen next, we are also unknown. Bruce said, and because of me, the direction of the story has begun to go astray, and the next story is likely to be completely different from what happens in our world. Clark and Martha lived peacefully on the farm until Martha stood in the yard and called Clark. Clark, who was drinking and watching the football game in the house, quickly put down the bottle and went outside the yard. When he came to the yard, Clark followed Martha's gaze and immediately saw the spaceship. TVs all over the world were broadcasting this news, and at this moment, the power went out. Yes, there was a power outage, not just the Clark family's TV, but also a secret military base. Clark opened the door and walked in to check the cause of the power outage. He saw a sentence playing on the TV in a loop in various languages. You are not alone. It's not just Clark's TV, it can be received all over the world. After receiving the signal, all the machines that can play videos are playing this sentence in a loop at this moment. You are not alone. That spaceship can't be a Kryptonian spacecraft. Chapter 588, Young Man in Bright Clothes and Furious Horses. I'm General Zod. A figure that was so distorted that it could not be called a human figure appeared on all the screens. I come from a distant planet. I crossed the sea of stars and came to Earth. For some time, your world has sheltered one of my people. I ask you to return it to me. For some reason, he chose to keep his identity secret from you. He will try to blend in with you. He will look like you, but he does not belong to you. For those who may know his current whereabouts, the fate of your planet is in your hands. Listen carefully, Kal-El. Surrender within 24 hours, or let the whole world bear the consequences. Soon. Bruce looked at General Zod, who had issued a notice to the world, and said, at the earliest Zod's spaceship will arrive on Earth to announce your existence in these few days. There are still Diana and Alpha in our world, so the passage of time will not stop, and we must start preparing. In fact, General Zod may just want to find me. Clark couldn't help but say, I just need to go see him then. There's no need to make it like an interstellar war. No, you are wrong, Clark. Bruce said, General Zod is here with bad intentions. Although I don't know how he escaped from the Phantom Zone, General Zod is the general of Krypton. He will definitely revive Krypton. The secret code is in your hands, and now there is a new suitable planet for him to transform. He will definitely choose to directly transform the Earth into a second Krypton. Then use the secret code in the creation chamber to survive a large number of new Kryptonians. By then, the Earth will be a Krypton that is completely controlled by Zod. Clark still wanted to argue, but he had no way to start, because at least there was one thing that Wayne said was not wrong. That is, General Zod would definitely choose to revive Krypton. If he wanted to revive Krypton, would he revive a brand new Krypton or a Krypton that was completely controlled by General Zod? Obviously, the answer is most likely the latter. Image continues. Whether it is Clark's father Jonathan or the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet, Perry, they are all right. That is, the world is indeed not ready to accept Clark. Clark's existence caused an uproar, and countless people were discussing this matter. There is an interview show on TV, and the content is naturally related to General Zod's previous remarks. We know almost nothing about him, right? If he really has no ill will towards us, then he should instinctively turn himself in and bear the consequences. If he doesn't realize it, maybe we should send it. Lois Lane, a reporter from the Daily Planet, knows the identity of this person. We should ask her for the answer. That's right. The person being interviewed is the director of the marketing website that Louis had found before, Woodburn. Wait, you said it was Louis Lane, a reporter from the Daily Planet? Lois was watching the interview on TV at home, looking fucked up, and then his phone rang, and Perry called Louis directly. Have you watched the news? It's been on TV all morning. Perry said to Louis anxiously. This time I completely agree with Woodburn's point of view. Have you seen him? Do you know where he is? I don't know. Even if I know, I won't tell you. Perry felt a headache and quickly persuaded. The whole world is under threat now. This is not the time for you to show your journalistic ethics. Now the problem is serious, Louis. The FBI is here. Now they are going to charge you with treason. I'm hanging up. Louis hung up the phone and turned around to run. But if the FBI couldn't even stop a female reporter, it would be too bad. FBI, put your hands up. Louis was blocked by the FBI before he ran out of an alley. Put your hands up. Put your bag down. A group of fully armed FBI directly put guns to Louis' head, then handcuffed him to death, and took him to an armored transport vehicle on the spot. In a church, Clark also heard the discussion about himself on the radio. Because we know very little about these visitors, the official information given is that the visitors do not pose a threat. Although they sound unfriendly, then obviously everyone will have such questions. Who is this Kal-El? Does he really exist? How could he hide for so long? Clark's thoughts were flying, and he returned to the rainy day of his youth again. Clark was dragged down from a car by a group of thugs, and he was holding a copy of Plato's book The Republic in his hand. The leading thug threw him hard on the wire mesh and said viciously, "Come on, fight back, Clark. Get up, Kent. School bullying is everywhere." The thugs saw that Clark just looked at them silently, and they were even more arrogant. In their impression, this was a sign of fear. This silence was the best stimulant and the most helpful movement for them. Little did they know that the person they were bullying could beat them into a mess with one punch. That's it? Is that all you can do? The leading thug was still provoking, and he was still outputting. Come on. Come on. Faced with the constant provocation of the gangsters, Clark could only tolerate it because he knew that if he hit someone, it would not be as simple as school bullying. This world is very interesting. Those who eat candy are always bad people. Looking at that memory, Clark just smiled slightly. Anyway, it was all in the past. Logan, you are a very nice person. Really? Logan was convinced and admired Clark from the bottom of his heart. Although he, Logan, had a bad temper and a low level of education, at least he understood things. He said that Clark was a good person from the bottom of his heart without any mockery, but really admired Clark's kindness. If Clark had a worse temper, let alone the same as him, even if he was a normal person, none of those little bastards would have survived. So Superman is unique, and most people can only be native Chinese. If Clark is now grown up, then Clark at that time was in his youth, full of vigor and vitality, and it was a time when a person's talents were revealed. Don't bully young people, because teenagers do not have the pressure of life like middle-aged and elderly people, and are smoothed by society. They are fearless, and unlike children, they have the ability to commit crimes. Therefore, Clark's kindness is recognized by everyone, just like Thanos' strong heart. This has nothing to do with identity, but recognition from the heart. Chapter 589. Question: what is the difference between handcuffs and donuts? The gangsters were about to attack when they heard the sound of a car behind them. The gangsters saw someone coming and fled. A big fat hand stretched out in front of Clark. It was Rod, the little fat boy who was saved by Clark when the school bus fell into the water. After so many years, the little fat boy successfully grew up to become a big fat boy, but his opinion of Clark changed. This time, he called Clark's father Jonathan to drive away the gangsters. Look. Clark pointed at the screen and said, this is also the reason why I'm willing to be an ordinary person. There must be good people among humans. Are you hurt? Jonathan came to Clark and asked. You know that's impossible. Looking at Clark, who turned his head, Jonathan said, that's not what I meant. I want to ask, are you okay? I want to beat him up. I want to beat him up. Although Clark was not injured at all, the previous punches and kicks were no different from a breeze to him, but Clark felt wronged and uncomfortable, and he spoke his mind. Jonathan did not simply interrupt him rudely, but patiently said, I know you want to. I want to say, I even hope you can fight back, but then what? Jonathan was also very uncomfortable. As a father, he watched his son being bullied, but could not do anything. He knew that his child was not an ordinary person. If he really let him go, then none of the gangsters before would be able to walk out. No, it would be good if they could leave a whole body. If Clark was an ordinary person, then at least he could fight back, but he was not. So Jonathan could only let Clark suppress his strength and anger. Will all this make you feel better? What kind of person you want to grow up to be, you have to decide for yourself, Clark. No matter what kind of person you become, righteous or evil, he will change the world. The most precious wealth my father left me is equality, self-control. Clark looked at his father and was very glad that he landed on Kent Farm. Bruce was even more grateful. He said, the whole world should thank Jonathan Kent. Thank him for his kindness and sacrifice. Clark sat in the church, and the priest asked him, what are you thinking about? Clark pondered for a moment and said, I don't know where to start. Anywhere. The spaceship that appeared last night. Clark said the not so ordinary reality in a calm tone. I'm the person they are looking for. The priest swallowed and suddenly realized that things were a little beyond his expectations. Why does he look familiar to me? Janitor said, that's the priest. He was also one of the people who bullied me in my previous memories. Later, he became a priest. I often went there to pray. Do you know why they are looking for you? I don't know, but this general's odd. Even if I surrender, there is no guarantee that he will do what he says. However, if there is a slight chance to save the earth if I surrender, shouldn't I seize it? The painting behind Clark is Gethsemane. What? Gethsemane? Constantine said, although I don't believe in that old god, in order to take the exam for Heaven's organization, I still memorize the Bible, all versions. The painting behind Clark is probably about a disciple of Christ discovering that perfecting others is the way to sanctify the flesh. It can also be understood as how a person can possess some sacred spirit. This sacred spirit is the manifestation of willpower, the will of steel. Is this hinting at something? If Constantine hadn't said it, then no one would have thought much about it. But when Constantine finished speaking, it was really hard for everyone to connect this title with this painting. Superman, Man of Steel, Will of Steel? Everyone looked at each other and found that this matter was not simple. What about your own intuition? Zod is not trustworthy. Facing the priest's question, Clark answered seriously, the problem is that I don't know whether the people on Earth can be trusted. After Clark answered the priest's words, he turned and left. As Clark left, the priest suddenly said, sometimes you have to trust others first, and then others will believe you. You have to trust others first, and then others will believe you. He is advising me to trust humans first, show myself to humans, and express trust, so that humans can believe me. Clark looked at the military base on the screen, and knew that he had made the same move in the future as he thought now. In a military base, all the soldiers stationed here began to fully arm themselves, and their opponent was only one person. A man in a blue shirt and a red cloak was floating in the air. "Okay, we've noticed you. What do you want?" "I want to talk to Lois Lane." "Who told you she's here?" "Don't waste time, General." Clark went straight to the point, not wanting to play take-eye with the military at all. He said directly, "I will surrender, but you must ensure Lois's freedom and safety." "How did you find out where it was?" I have clairvoyance and super hearing. And X-ray vision." "I know, but I still think your perception is even a little bit." In the dark corridor, Clark's hands were handcuffed, and two soldiers on his left and right held his arms and walked forward. Looking at this scene, Loki couldn't help but send a barrage. "Loki Odinson, I'm scared to death. Too funny. What's the difference between these handcuffs and two donuts?" Peter Parker, the difference is that the donuts are delicious." Sitting in an empty interrogation room, Louis asked, "Why do you want to surrender?" "I'm surrendering to humans. That's different." Looking at Clark, Louis asked, "Why did you let them handcuff you?" "If I resist, it's not surrender." Clark smiled and said, "If they feel comfortable doing this, then let them." The atmosphere fell into an awkward moment, and Louis could only use his ability as a reporter to find a topic. "What does the S on your chest mean?" "It's not an S." Clark looked down at the symbol on his chest and said, "In our world, it represents hope." Chapter 590, Zod's arrival. "Mr. Clark." The river god's soft voice suddenly sounded. "Can I ask you a question?" "Please ask." Clark looked at the river god, and so did the others. After seeing the river god's shocking battle, no one dared to underestimate this squinty-eyed monster. "Can you tidy up your chest hair a little? It's all exposed." Puff. The serious academic atmosphere in the screening room was instantly broken. I don't know who couldn't help laughing. Clark looked down at his chest with an embarrassed look. After making sure that his chest hair was not exposed this time, he subconsciously pulled up his collar from a biological standpoint. "Here, it's just an S." Louis said, "Why not call it super?" Just when Louis was about to give Clark's S logo a meaning of the Earth, to make him more accepting of the Earth's culture, a knocking sound was heard. An old man appeared outside the glass window. He was interrupted by Clark, just as he was about to introduce himself. "Drive Amy Hamilton." Clark turned his head and looked at the special glass on the side. This special glass allows people outside to see the people in the room without obstacles, but the people in the room can only see the effective mirror. But Clark is an exception. Clark saw Dr. Amy directly through the glass, and the things in her pocket, an ID card, a half-eaten pack of chewing gum, and it was mint flavor. Clark looked at the glass, or more precisely, at the people outside the glass, and said, "Not only did I see you, I also saw the soldiers in the next room. They were preparing tranquilizers." "You don't need to prepare that. Sir, we can't be unprepared." Dr. Amy said, "You may be carrying alien pathogens. I've been here for 33 years, doctor, and I haven't infected anyone. Since you know that we have reasonable reasons to suspect you, you can reveal your identity to Miss Lane. Why can't you tell us?" "You're a little anxious," Tony said, "a little anxious to get the people on Earth to recognize your identity. But there's nothing I can do about it. After I learned about General Zod's information from my father, Joel, and heard General Zod's speech to the Earth, I couldn't help but be anxious. But this story seems to be a little different from our world." Bruce said, "Clark, you're 29 years old." Clark responded, and the one on the screen said, "I've been on Earth for 33 years, which means that the me on that screen arrived on Earth 4 years earlier than me. Then will Zod also come to Earth 4 years later?" "That's great," Bruce said, "but that's just a possibility. We must be fully prepared. In fact, I have a plan." "Let's talk about it, General." Clark looked at the general who was obviously still playing take-eye with him, and he was too lazy to pretend. He stood up and spread his hands naturally. The handcuffs on his hands broke directly. He walked to the glass and said to Dr. Amy, "You are afraid because you can't control me. My answer is not now and not in the future, but this does not mean that I'm your enemy." "Then who is it?" the general asked back. "Zod. That's what I'm worried about. If possible, I will receive an order to hand you over to him. Hearing the general's words, Clark did not get angry, but said, "Do what you should do, General." Clark was finally released. In the desert outside, Clark and Louis said goodbye. "Thank you." "Thank you for what?" Louis was a little confused by Clark's thanks. "Thank you for believing in me." But it didn't change the result. It did for me. The two looked at each other and held hands. "I really don't know whether to say this is your luck or the luck of the earth, Mr. Clark." Bruce looked at the two people on the screen and said this sentence for the countless times. "It's really lucky. Maybe this is both my luck and the luck of the earth." Clark also responded. They all knew what Bruce was talking about. He was lamenting that, although Clark encountered a lot of troubles on the way to growing up, he met good people at every stage and took Clark through one stage after another. If there was any problem in any stage, Clark and Bruce would not be able to sit together and watch the live broadcast as calmly as they are now. Suddenly, Clark said, "They are here. You should go." A spaceship fell from the sky and came in front of Clark. Behind Clark was a military base and a group of tanks. "This is a handover ceremony. A handover ceremony to hand Clark over to Zod." The hatch of the spaceship opened, and two Kryptonians in armor walked down from it. One of the Kryptonians with a higher status turned his mask transparent and looked Clark up and down. "Kal-El. I'm the deputy commander, Fire Earl." The deputy commander showed her face. She was actually a female Kryptonian. She said to Clark, "On behalf of General Zod, I greet you." After that, Fire walked to the tank group behind Clark and asked the general in the lead, "Are you the highest ranking official here?" "I am. General Zod wants this woman to go with us." Fire pointed to Louise. "Why does Zod want Louise?" Clark was very confused. Logically, whether it was official or personal grudges, Zod's target should only be himself. Why did he bring Louise with him? If Zod has enough military skills, he will definitely try his best to get news about you from the Earth's information network. Bruce said, "Of course there are TV programs among them, so of course he will know that you in that world were announced by Woodburn, and Woodburn got the news from Louis." To be absolutely sure, Zod will definitely find a way to capture everyone who knows about you, because you have the secret book on you. Everyone. That means my mother too. Clark's face suddenly changed. His mother is his biggest concern in this world. If someone wants to hurt his mother, then even Zod must step over his body. Chapter 591 Comrade Guan discovers something is wrong. "You didn't say you still need our people." Faced with the general's refusal, Fire directly asked back, "Do you want me to tell the general that you don't want to cooperate?" Faced with Fire's threat, another general said to her bluntly, "I don't care how you tell him." The atmosphere suddenly became tense, and at this moment, Louis took the initiative to say, "It's okay, I'll go with him." Louis and Clark followed Fire onto the spaceship, while Dr. Amy and other soldiers could only stay where they were and watch them leave with unwilling eyes. Weak countries have no diplomacy. When this scope is expanded to the galaxy, the same principle also applies to planets. Looking at Louis, who was forced to voluntarily follow Fire onto the spaceship on the screen, Bruce's face was very ugly. No matter whether he knew Louis or not, in front of the Kryptonians, they were all Earthlings. If the internal fighting of the Kryptonians wanted to involve the Earthlings, then Bruce would have to take care of it. No matter who you are, whether you are a god or an alien, as long as you dare to make trouble on Earth, he Bruce Wayne will make you pay for your revenge. Because he is Batman, he is revenge. On the spaceship, Clark quietly handed the information stick with the control effect of his own spaceship to Louis, so as to deal with special situations. The atmosphere on our spaceship is not suitable for humans, so you need to wear a respirator. While speaking, Fire put on a transparent helmet of the same style as hers for Louis. We don't know whether there is a bomb inside, but at least after wearing the respirator, Louis at least doesn't feel difficulty breathing. On the mothership, General Zod looked at Clark in the command room and said to him, "Kal-El, you don't know how long we have been looking for you. I guess you are Zod." "It's General Zod, our commander." Fire on the side immediately corrected the disrespect in Clark's words. "It's okay, Fire. We can forgive Carl's negligence in etiquette. He doesn't understand our set of rules. We should celebrate, not argue." At this moment, General Zod did not show the ferocity that Clark expected. Instead, he was like a kind elder taking a child home. There are only so many Kryptonians left in the entire universe, and Clark is a junior to all the Kryptonians here. In addition to his relationship with Jor-El, even without the secret book, Zod likes Clark in front of him a little. Too much like Joe and Laura. Zod thought. If those bad things hadn't happened, Clark might call him Uncle Zod now. In the past few hundred years in the Phantom Zone, Zod's rage has been calmed down a lot. As a general, he has the responsibility to protect all Kryptonians. He can kill the congressman, because in Zod's view, the congressman is dragging Krypton to destruction. But Clark is different. Clark is a child, his junior, and the object of Zod's protection. The premise is that Clark listens to him and hands over the secret book so that he can revive Krypton. I feel uncomfortable and weak. Clark was dizzy and weak, and finally he knelt on the ground and spit out blood. What's wrong with him? He can't adapt to the gas of our spaceship. Zod looked at Clark, who was spitting blood, and said with a trace of pity in his voice, "You spent your whole life adapting to the ecology of the Earth, Clark. But in the end, you can't adapt to our environment, our home. Help him." "I can't do it," General Zod said. "No matter what happens, he can only rely on himself." On the previous spaceship, was it Krypton's gas or the Earth's atmosphere? Bruce suddenly realized a key point and hurriedly asked Strange on the side, "Strange, did you notice that when the Krypton spaceship was opened before, did the air flow back into the spaceship?" "No," Strange said after a brief thought. "There is Kryptonian gas inside the Krypton spaceship. So." Bruce Wayne frowned and said, "Before, Clark and Lois' performance on the spaceship was not so obvious. When Clark first came to Earth, it took him a long time to adapt to the Earth's atmosphere. Then, in 33 years, he gradually adapted and gained super strength. When he came into contact with the atmosphere of Krypton, he fell to the ground and vomited blood without even long contact. Then the question is, what exactly is in the atmosphere of Krypton? Zod and the others are all Kryptonians. They are fine." Bruce was very excited to grasp the key to the problem. This is the best way to punish Clark. If there is a chance, he must get the composition of the Kryptonian atmosphere from the Kryptonian spaceship. Image continues. Clark slowly opened his eyes, but found himself in the farm. Clark was puzzled. Didn't he just faint on General Zod's spaceship? Why did he appear here? "Hello, Carl." A voice came. Clark turned his head and looked over. It was General Zod, who had changed his clothes. "Or maybe you like to be called Clark. I used to be the military chief of Krypton." General Zod strode slowly towards Clark and told him his past story. "And your father was our chief scientist. We are very good friends. Although we often have frictions, we have reached a consensus on one point, that is, Krypton is going to be destroyed. I paid so much and tried my best to protect our civilization and save our planet, but we were sentenced and imprisoned in the Phantom Zone." There was lingering anger in Zod's words, but he continued, "I witnessed the destruction of our planet with my own eyes, and therefore, we were free. We wandered around in the wreckage of our own planet, starving. How did you find the Earth?" "We successfully transformed the Phantom projector into a thruster, and your father made the same modifications to the Earth spaceship that sent you to Earth, so the tool that imprisoned us has become a lifeboat." General Zod's tone was full of sarcasm when he said this. "No." Hikaru stood up suddenly, pointed at a place on the screen and said, "There is something there." Chapter 592. The destruction of Krypton was actually a conspiracy. "What? Where?" Everyone was shocked by Guang's violent reaction. Hikaru hasn't expressed his opinion for a long time, but the legend of this European emperor is still vivid in everyone's mind. "I'm not mistaken," Hikaru said, "just now, in General Zod's memory, when Krypton was destroyed, there was some energy fluctuation on Krypton, and it looked like the space jump fluctuation of a spaceship. Could it be Krypton's escape ship?" Compared to Strange, who relied on memory to recall, Tony waved his hand, and a machine beside him directly released a projection, showing the picture of Krypton's destruction projected on the screen of the screening room. "Jarvis, zoom in." "Okay, sir." Under Jarvis' control, the place pointed out by Hikaru kept zooming in and out. In the end, everyone could only barely see that in the moment before Krypton was destroyed, something did appear above Krypton and took away a Kryptonian city. Is it Krypton's rescue ship? Clark couldn't help asking. Krypton is his bloodline's home planet. If many Kryptonians survived, he would certainly be very happy. I think, maybe not. Hickory said, Tony, please ask Jarvis to call up the scene of Krypton's destruction, when Clark escaped from Krypton and Zod was just exiled. The grand scene of the planet's destruction and turning into cosmic dust once again appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone put their faces close to it and searched inch by inch, hoping to find the trace of the mysterious spaceship, but unfortunately, this time they found nothing. That spaceship, could it be a rescue spaceship from Krypton? Clark asked again, but his tone was not sure. Combined with the previous environment of Krypton, this spaceship did not look like a rescue spaceship at all. Unless there is another person like Jor-El and his wife on Krypton, but even if there is, they may not have enough ability to build such a spaceship. Besides, why must the other party rescue people when they are about to be destroyed? Or, is the other party trying to take advantage of this opportunity to hide from others? The people who have seen too many conspiracies have their thoughts growing like weeds. The appearance of this spaceship is really too weird. It appears at the right moment before the explosion of Krypton, not too fast or too slow. And they took away exactly one city's worth of Kryptonians. Hikaru squatted in front of the video, watching it repeatedly, and the screening room also cooperated by pausing the content being played and hanging a sign for a half-hour break. There is definitely a conspiracy here, Bruce said without hesitation. Clark has lived on Earth for 33 years, and his strength is enough to cross the universe in his physical body and fly in a vacuum. The former Krypton was a super empire that colonized the universe. An empire of this level actually chose to retreat back to Krypton. When they colonized the universe, it was impossible for them not to know the secret of the yellow sun. Clark's parents already knew all this. Then the question is, why would they give up all this, everything that made them gods, just to return to Krypton? Even if Krypton was about to explode in the end, they would not leave. Loki Odinson, there is a conspiracy here. Holy Lord, this is obvious. And I have guessed the reason. Someone must have discovered the terrifying strength of the Kryptonians. In order to maintain their dominance, they attacked Krypton. I guess they affected the secret codex. Clark Kent, secret codex? Exclamation mark. Holy Lord, that's right, it's the secret code. They only need to make a slight modification in the secret code, so that the genes that produce senators in the secret code will add the idea of returning to Krypton when producing senators. Then, after 1 or 200 years, Krypton will fully return to Krypton. Thanos, then, as a civilization that survives by plundering other planets. Krypton survives on its own planet without making any changes, and there is only one outcome. Loki Odinson, exterminate the whole race. Loki issued a genocide threat that made them shudder. They never expected that Krypton, which seemed powerful and finally stepped into destruction, had already been plotted against by someone. Although it's just a guess, it's the most likely guess. Bruce Wayne concluded, we had Thanos' speech first, and we didn't realize something was wrong with Krypton at first, because there was already a planet like this. We subconsciously brought Krypton into Titan, but the situation on Krypton is completely different from that on Titan. Clark just stayed in the atmosphere of Krypton for a while, and he became so weak that he was coughing up blood, but he was almost invincible on Earth. Then the question is, the atmosphere of Krypton must have some special ingredients that suppress the potential of Kryptonians. Their own home planet is actually a killer that will kill themselves. As soon as these words came out, the screening room was forced to turn on the air conditioner again to release the cool air. Then, who did it? I don't know. Bruce Wayne's words even carried a little bit of relief. He said, but it must be someone who doesn't want Krypton to develop. An empire where everyone is Clark, and even because everyone is a soldier, it is more powerful than the current Clark. How many forces in the universe can be their opponents? Jonathan Osterman, Drive Manhattan. This can almost be called a dimensionality reduction attack. Just like I can modify the genes of all the people on Earth without the people on Earth being able to detect it, Clark's home planet Krypton and all the Kryptonians have been used in a similar way. Loki Odinson, no, the modification of Krypton is simpler, because they are all produced from the secret code. Constantine, is there a possibility that the secret code itself is a huge conspiracy? Clark trembled all over. He never expected that he would get such an answer. His blood home planet and the entire Krypton civilization were all plotted against. The secret code that General Zod has been searching for may actually be the culprit that destroyed the entire Krypton. Holy Lord, compared to killing the whole clan, this method is really cruel. Loki Odinson, I think the opponent's strength should not be very strong. Otherwise they would not use this method to harm others. Captain America, maybe they want to reduce losses. If they attack by force, unless it is a war of the level of humans against ants, they are likely to cause losses. Maybe the universe is extremely dangerous, and they are afraid that they will be exposed and injured, and attract more enemies. The more they talked, the more scared they became. They didn't expect that they would talk about the three-body again, after chatting for a long time. Chapter 593, Unique Collection. Everyone perked up now. Who could have thought that a story that seemed to be about a planet being destroyed because of resource problems actually had such a hidden story behind it? Ace, at THANOS Thanos. Thanos, does your planet have something similar? Thanos, Titan is all naturally bred, there is no such thing, and I have a clear understanding of the origin of our race. Thanos, our Titans are all genetic creations of the Celestials. So I once called the Titans the strongest race under the Celestials, because the Celestials created us Titans with this goal in mind. Thanos, after creating us, they placed the Titans on Titan to reproduce themselves. Before the resource crisis, Titan was the holy land of the entire universe. Thanos, of course, this is all in the past. Wonder, then, why did the mastermind behind the scenes take away a city? Yes, it was a city. The spaceship directly shrunk a city and put it into the spaceship. Loki Odinson, that must be the mastermind who took that Krypton city and the Kryptonians in the city as spoils of war. Thor did this when he was fighting in the Nine Realms. My father also brought back the Eternal Flame, the source of power of Surtur, the king of the fire giants, to the royal treasury of Asgard for preservation. Clark Kent, I see. What should I do if I meet them? Loki Odinson, my advice is to run away quickly, although I think the chances of you running away are slim. Jonathan Osterman, Drive Manhattan, the other party is unlikely to come to Earth just for Clark alone. Collecting Krypton should be intended to study the genes of Kryptonians. Loki Odinson, no, it's entirely possible. In my world, there is a cosmic god. He calls himself a collector and likes to collect rare treasures from the entire universe. I have been to the void where the collector is. Among the things he collects, there are unparalleled treasures, but there are also some ordinary items that are not even comparable to the standard weapons used by Asgard warriors. His collection room is a space transformed by his divine power. The interior is ridiculously large. I even suspect that it is a dimensional space. Loki Odinson, I had a pretty good chat with him. He collects various items because his heart anchor is collecting. Loki Odinson, in a long life, if there is nothing that can make them concentrate, it is easy to go crazy because they are all antiques that have survived since the birth of the universe. Ace, I understand what Loki means. The King of Ultra once told me that in a long life, you need a heart anchor. That is what you want to do. Otherwise you will be crippled and transformed into a wild beast in a long time and become a chaotic wild beast like the Chaos Demon Grimmed. Loki Odinson, that's right. The brothers Collector and Geoscienson, one of them likes to collect all kinds of rare treasures and the other is addicted to gambling and he is willing to lose his life for his hobby. They have turned this hobby into an obsession and their lives are firmly tied to everything. Loki Odinson, and if the mastermind behind the scenes likes to collect all kinds of civilizations like the Collector, maybe he will also target the Earth in the future. Wonder, turning free lives into collections is already extremely hateful. Why did he destroy the planet? Tony Stark, because the only one is the most precious. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the screening room felt like they were in the cold winter, with a biting cold wind raging. Tony's light words revealed a fact to everyone. What else can be more precious and unique than a race, the descendants of a civilization? The video continues. General Zod is telling Clark about his experience. We found ancient colonial outposts, looking for signs of life. But all we found was death. These outposts were abandoned long ago after leaving Krypton. We recycled all useful equipment, ammunition, and weapons. Even as small as an engine. We prepared for 33 years, until we detected a signal. That was triggered by you. You entered that ancient reconnaissance ship. Zod walked up to Clark and said to him, "It was you who brought us here, Carl. Now you have the power to save our race." On Krypton, the genetic template of every nascent life is encrypted in the citizen registry. Your father stole the secret code for registration and stored it in the spaceship that sent you here. Why? So that Kryptonians can be reborn on Earth. In the environment. In order to demonstrate his power, General Zod directly demolished Clark's home in the environment. In the wind and sand, Clark put on his battle suit again and asked, "What will happen to the Earth? There must be a foundation. Even your father has realized this." As General Zod's words fell, Clark noticed that there were skulls all over his feet. The corpses all over the ground, and General Zod's words have revealed Zod's heart. "No, Zod." Clark looked at the skulls under his feet in panic, took a deep breath, and then continued to look at Zod and said, "I won't help you." "Who will you help?" "No." Clark's body in the illusion continued to sink, and endless skeletons swallowed him, and his figure finally disappeared in the skeletons. When Clark woke up, he found himself tied to a chair with his hands and feet tied. If this kind of metal ring was on Earth, it would be a joke for Clark, but on the Krypton spaceship, under the influence of other Krypton spaceships, Clark was no different from an ordinary Earthling. Clark wanted to struggle, but even Zod couldn't get rid of this thing, let alone him who hadn't fully adapted to the Krypton environment. "Your father paid for his sins with honor, Carl." General Zod stood beside Clark. Facing Clark's questioning, General Zod admitted one thing without any concealment. "Yes, I killed Joe. I killed your father with my own hands." General Zod told Clark the truth very sincerely. He didn't intend to hide the fact that he killed Clark's father. "Since then, I have lived in pain every day. But if it happens again, I will do it again." Looking at Zod, who admitted what he did without hesitation and without concealment, everyone felt that they saw the shadow of a guy in the screening room. What are your plans for General Zod's ending in this book? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 594, Bruce Wayne, I'm just an ordinary man with money. The video continues. Zod looks at Clark, his eyes surprisingly full of sincerity. "I have an obligation to my people, and I will not allow anyone to stop me from fulfilling this obligation." Zod is right to stand on Krypton's side, but this position is devastating to the Earth. This is not justice and evil, but a racial war between two races for survival. It can be said that from the starting point, whether it is Zod or your father, their positions are the same. That is, to save Krypton, but because of different behaviors, genes and practices, they have embarked on different paths. Genes. Yes, genes. Hikari said. Zod's transformation into the appearance on the screen is probably inseparable from his own genes. Zod's genes, that is, the warrior's thinking limits Zod. In fact, the paranoia brought by this gene also symbolizes one thing, that is, the corruption of Krypton itself. But no matter what, Zod is an enemy of the Earth. Bruce concluded, no matter how much he wants to protect his people, as long as Zod wants to attack the Earth, he is the enemy of the Earth. Clark chose to remain silent after hearing this. When he learned that he actually had people of the same race, even if this person was the murderer of his father, he was still a little excited because it made him feel less lonely. However, when he learned that his people were going to destroy his second home planet, Clark was silent and confused. If possible, he really wanted to persuade Zod to let them live on this planet and live peacefully. But this is too difficult. Not to mention Zod and the others, even if they are Earthlings, can they accept Zod and other Kryptonian compatriots? The answer is no. Not all Earthlings are their adoptive parents, and their fellow Kryptonians are not themselves. What will they do when facing the malice of Earthlings? Clark knows, because he has thought about doing that. Clark took a deep breath, and his super brain worked quickly. He had to think of a way to come up with a way for Earthlings and Kryptonians to coexist. At the very least, he had to persuade Zod and the others to leave first. Tell me, if I ask Zod and his team to leave the Earth and build a new base on the moon in exchange for handing over the secret code, do you think it's possible? Zod can, but the people on Earth can't. Bruce came to Clark, sat next to him, and said to him, the people on Earth cannot accept an alien race stationed on the moon, no, in the solar system. Like Thanos once said, resources are limited. If Zod and his team were to settle on any planet in the solar system, it would cause great panic on Earth. What's more, Krypton has the unique ability to absorb the sun's yellow radiation to become stronger. Bruce only said half of it, but Clark understood his thoughts. He was saying that Zod, no, all Kryptonians including himself, were a threat to the Earth. What if we leave the solar system? The vast universe seems big, but it is actually very small. Hickory said, in my world, it seems that there are so many aliens, but in fact, if you distribute these aliens throughout the universe, you will find that compared with the entire universe, a few aliens are really pitifully few. Not every planet can give birth to life. I don't know what means General Zod has to transform the planet, but the energy and cost of planting trees in the desert and on the grass are completely different when it comes to planting trees. No. Peter suddenly said, there is still a way to break the deadlock. Since Zod is the general who protects Krypton, then Krypton was destroyed, and he, as a general, must want revenge, right? Then if you take this video back to show General Zod, and then use it to play a role, can you make him temporarily let go of his obsession with transforming the Earth into a second Krypton? Sure, Kit. Constantine said with some surprise, you've been with us for so long, and you've learned this trick. Peter scratched his head in embarrassment, but Bruce still rejected this idea. Revenge and rebuilding Krypton are not in conflict. In other words, revenge can be better achieved after rebuilding Krypton and increasing its population. Clark can show Zod the ability he gained through the yellow sun, maybe. Peter shut up halfway through his words. There was something wrong with this opportunity. Zod and his friends, who were similar to ordinary people, could suppress all technological creations on the Earth directly through technology. If they were equal to Clark per capita, then this war would be impossible to fight. Bruce was very annoyed now. Although he practiced the Crane Immortal martial arts, it was only limited to the strength of ordinary people. For some reason, the combat power detector could not measure his own combat power, but Diana had a combat power of about 600 in the combat power tester. Although the introduction of the combat power detector repeatedly indicated that this combat power value is only for reference, and one should not be overly superstitious about the combat power data, and the combat power evaluation standard of the combat power detector is relatively complicated, and people cannot be generalized, but Clark, who directly blew up the combat power detector, does not look like a monster that can be solved by power. That is, his fist. And for some reason, even Alpha can practice and use a small Kigan cannon or float for a short period of time, but he can't. He can't practice Ki at all, and can only practice it as a martial art to strengthen his body, and absorb some of the essence of the martial arts experience in it, and integrate it into his own fighting skills. Maybe my talent is not good enough. Bruce thought so. Now he knows that the only weapon that can deal with Clark is Krypton's objects. The atmosphere, the red sun, all are fine. But where can he get such things is a big problem. After all, he is just an ordinary person with money, and his opponents are a group of monsters who can go to the sky and into the earth. The video continues. Louis was left in the control room. Although it is not known whether it was planned or careless, it is a bit stupid to leave the opponent in his own crystal without any protection, and Louis has the key given by Clark. Next time, I will go with you, Bruce said to Clark without hesitation as he looked at Louis, who easily inserted the key into the control room. Chapter 595. Questions and answers. Quick answers. Pain card. Yes, Bruce plans to wait until General Zod from his own world comes to Earth, and then he will directly follow Bruce on the spaceship. As long as the other party dares to let him act in the main control room, he will dare to let the other party have a completely new impression of the Earthlings. Diana Prince, I will go too. One of you is an ordinary person, and the other is not even as good as an ordinary person. When he arrives on the Kryptonian spaceship, at that time, I will be the strongest combat force. Clark Kent, Diana Prince, by the way, are you interested in joining the Justice League? Clark Kent, what? Bruce Wayne, the Justice League is an alliance I formed to protect the Earth. It mainly accepts people from our world, who may enter the live broadcast room in the future, as well as some people with special abilities. Bruce Wayne, I always thought that our world was an ordinary technological world, but this is not the case. On Earth, in addition to Paradise Island, the hometown of you and Diana, there are many people with high combat power reactions. We must supervise these people to prevent them from causing any damage to the world. Peter Parker, I think it is better to open up than to block. Since there are so many superpowers in your world, why don't you find them and have a good talk? Bruce Wayne, not everyone is Clark. I must be fully prepared. Bruce Wayne, when I used the combat power detector to scan the world, I found a large number of super reactive groups. I first called out the one with the largest reaction value, which was Clark. Then it blew up with my private satellite. I could only intercept some data charts. In fact, there are many people with combat power exceeding 100 in our world, and there are even more with dozens. Bruce Wayne, Alpha, who practiced the Crane Immortal style, has a combat power of only a dozen points, but it is enough to demolish a block with his bare hands. Bruce Wayne, in addition to Paradise Island, there are also many unidentified creatures with data exceeding the standard on the seabed. Diana said they are Atlanteans. Bruce Wayne, obviously, I can't have a good talk with Atlantis for the time being, so I can only make full preparations to prevent the invasion of the other party. Diana Prince, actually, I always think you think too much. Atlantis has been in the sea for thousands of years. Its technology is definitely more advanced than yours. Why invade the land? Besides, ordinary Atlanteans can only move and breathe in the water. They must use breathing equipment to survive on land. Holy Lord, then they can flood the land. Since this world is not suitable for me, and I don't want to integrate into this world, then why not just transform this world? Bruce Wayne, you mean, they may directly trigger a tsunami to sweep the entire land? Holy Lord, I guess. Although this is not difficult, I know there is magic that can trigger a flood, to flood the entire city, but that kind of magic can only be drawn by the great demons. If ordinary humans want to use it, they must at least perform a blood sacrifice. Bruce Wayne, in other words, you have the ability to summon a flood, to flood a city without knowing it? Bruce Wayne's face became more and more ugly. He didn't expect that there was such magic. It seems that it is not enough for him to take precautions on the technological side. Image continues seeing that no one was around. Louise quickly inserted the control key Clark had given her into the main control panel of General Zod's spaceship. The next second, a phantom appeared behind Louise. Louis was frightened by the phantom and asked, "Where did you come from?" "Master Key, Miss Lane." Jor-El's memory said to Louise, "Thanks to your help, I was able to enter the main engine of the spaceship." "Who are you?" "I'm Carl's father." "Then is there any way you can help us?" "I designed this spaceship." Jor-El said softly, "I can adjust its atmospheric composition to suit human needs, and we can stop them." Questioning begins. How will Jor-El's AI consciousness expel the Kryptonians? This question is a quick answer session. If you answer correctly, you will be awarded 10 points. If you answer incorrectly, you will draw a pain card. Hint, the answer has appeared before. Now, start the quick answer. Loki Odinson, I will answer. My answer is that they adjusted the atmosphere of the Earth, and then Clark recovered his strength and could easily defeat the Kryptonians. Loki Odinson answered incorrectly. Draw a pain card. Loki Odinson, Blaze. Isn't that right? Everyone was stunned. In their opinion, this was the most likely correct answer. It is expulsion, not defeat. Bruce Wayne said, expulsion, not defeat. These are two concepts. Since Jor-El is the designer of the spacecraft, he must have left a lot of backdoors for himself. Bruce Wayne frowned and finally said, Jor-El controlled the spacecraft through the backdoors left at the beginning of the design and expelled it. Bruce Wayne answered incorrectly. Draw a pain card. This is not right. Everyone stopped. Although the pain card is just for fun, if it really comes to death, it depends on the nightmare card and the hell card, but most people are still unwilling to suffer that sin. Pain cards do not have to face life-threatening dangers, but in the eyes of everyone, the torture of pain cards is even more severe than that of nightmare cards. At least nightmare cards will not let you smash other people's windows naked in the middle of the night, right? Isn't this kind of torture really a nightmare? Don't use Deadpool's moral bottom line to estimate our moral bottom line. The classic elimination method is online. Tony said, first eliminate the two most likely answers, and then start to review the questions. Jor-El expelled the Kryptonians through a certain method. To be precise, it was Jor-El's AI consciousness, AI. As an artificial intelligence that tends to be auxiliary, his biggest role is to provide guidance. That's right, guidance. Who is guiding? There is only one answer, Lois Lane. In other words, this answer is inseparable from Lois Lane. Tony Stark, my answer is Jor-El's AI consciousness guided Lois Lane to expel the Kryptonians. Right square bracket. Chapter 596 Clark, I have a bold idea. The judgment is ambiguous, and now two choices are given. 1. You don't want anything, and I won't give you anything. 2. Draw a pain card, and get 10 points. TSK. Tony was a little unhappy. As the intelligence of the screening room became stronger and stronger, it became more and more difficult to get loopholes through some ambiguous answers. In the past, there was a case of giving multiple rewards for one sentence, but now an ambiguous answer has become two choices, and you have to choose it yourself. Looking at option 2, Tony suddenly had an inexplicable feeling. If he chose option 2, this time the pain card would definitely be the same as the pain card of smashing someone else's glass in the middle of the night naked. I choose 2. Are you kidding? Who is Tony Stark? Exclamation mark. How can he be afraid of a nightmare card? Exclamation mark. Everyone didn't dare to make a choice for a while. Time passed little by little, and finally the countdown given by the screening room ended. Time is up, you guys. I have given such obvious hints. Didn't you guess it? The video continues. Watch carefully. In the room where Clark was imprisoned, the soldier who had drawn Clark's blood and was very rude suddenly heard a sound behind him. Turning his head, Clark had gotten out of his weak state without knowing when, and easily broke free from the iron ring that imprisoned him. But he felt uncomfortable breathing, and had to open the mask. On the other side, with the help of Jor-El, Louis' escape can only be described as a narrow escape. After sending Louis to the escape pod, Jor-El's phantom also appeared beside Clark. Looking at Jor-El who suddenly appeared, Clark asked, is what Zod said about the secret book true? Open the hatch. Faced with Clark's question, Jor-El asked Clark to open the hatch first. Clark then did as he was told. He punched a large hole with a radius of 2 meters in the cabin, and countless air gushed out into the universe. You really did open the hatch. This way, it's faster. After the hatch was opened, the yellow sun's rays shone directly on Clark's body, restoring his strength. And Jor-El said to Clark, we want you to learn what is most important to humans. If one day, when the time is right, you may become a bridge between the two races. I suddenly understand what Jor-El means. Peter said, he believes that the original Krypton was corrupt, and under the influence of the secret code, Krypton was no longer savable, so Mr. Clark was born. He said that Mr. Clark has something precious, that the entire Krypton does not have, freedom. This is not only the freedom for Mr. Clark to choose his own life, but also that Mr. Clark can build the future Krypton into a free Krypton. And what he meant by becoming a bridge between the two races should be that Mr. Clark, in his dual identities as the son of Krypton and the son of the Earth, should integrate the Kryptonians and the Earthlings. Yes, there are many ways to revive. The revival chosen by General Zod is based on extinction, and the revival chosen by Mr. Jor-El is to make the Kryptonians a brand new race. A race that merges with the people of Earth. The image continues. Look. Jor-El pointed to the escape pod that was crashing in the distance, with Louis on it. You can save her, Carl. Jor-El said to Clark, you can save them all. Clark took one last look at Jor-El, kicked his legs lightly, raised his arms horizontally, and slowly flew out of the spaceship. Behind Clark was the endless scorching sun. At this moment, the bridge between Earth and Krypton was officially built. This moment was the time for Clark to use his own power. Clark instantly caught up with the escape pod that fell into the atmosphere, opened the hatch of the escape pod, and then picked up Louise, using his body, actually a layer of energy shield, that is, a universal biological force field, to isolate the flames caused by the explosion of the escape pod. In this way, the escape pod exploded in the cornfield, and a world where only Khrushchev was injured was born. You are safe. Holding Louise and slowly falling down, Clark said to her softly, "Are you okay?" "It's okay." Louise said quickly, "I don't want to tell them about you. I don't want to tell them anything, but they did something to me. He invaded my mind." "It's okay, Louis." Clark smiled and comforted Louis. The sun shone on Clark's face, adding a touch of warmth to Clark's smile, which was already full of masculinity. "They did the same to me." Suddenly, Clark's face changed, as if he heard something, and flew into the sky. On the other side, a Kryptonian spaceship landed on the open space of Clark's farm. A group of Kryptonians wearing armor that was 3/4 similar to the Predator got off the spaceship and asked directly, "Where is the spaceship he took when he came?" Faced with this group of unfriendly guys, Martha chose to fight back in a more direct way. "Go to hell." Fire pinched Martha, who was rude, not knowing that she had already angered 2 of the 3 most unprovoked people on Earth. Just then, their scanners detected the spaceship Clark took when he came, but there was no secret book in the spaceship. General Zod, who was leading the group, was furious and directly lifted up the red pickup truck beside him and smashed Clark's house. Mom. Clark was furious when he saw this scene. That was his mother. The few good impressions he had of General Zod quickly dissipated. Although General Zod treated him very well, he did not take his mother seriously at all, and even injured her. This behavior was enough to make Clark furious. But when he saw Fire jump dozens of meters high easily, he realized for a moment that the other party was a Kryptonian like himself. He could absorb the energy of the sun to become stronger, so why couldn't they? Although they would definitely go through a period of adaptation, General Zod and his men were all elite warriors. If they were to fully adapt, and more than a dozen of them beat him up together, he would definitely be unable to resist. Thinking of this, Clark made a bold decision. Chapter 597, The Useless 40mm Depleted Uranium Armor-Piercing Bullet. The video continues. Where is the secret book? General Zod roared and used a bat-style interrogation, but the next second, a red and blue figure pushed him away at a very fast speed. "How dare you threaten my mother?" Clark was really angry at this moment. The angry fists hit General Zod's mask one after another. Clark pushed General Zod to slide on the ground, through the cornfield, and knocked down a grain silo. He knocked down the town and directly blew up a gas station alive, causing a fire and blowing up 2 cars. Looking at this scene, Clark shuddered in anger. And Bruce was angry. Although he could understand Clark's anger, he could understand Clark's anger at that time even more, after losing his parents. But understanding is not the same as forgiveness. If the 2 of them were fighting in space, Bruce would definitely not say a word, but UTM fight on Earth. It's fine if it's in the cornfield. It's Clark's own home, but you actually went to the town. There are people in the town. And that's a gas station. In the explosion just now, he clearly saw that there were still people in the gas station. And there were 2 cars. God knows if there were people in the cars. "I apologize for my behavior," Clark said. "Now I understand more why my father is determined not to let me use my power." Loki Odinson, apologize? What apology? You did the right thing. Logan, damn, what's wrong with others bullying your mother? You did the right thing. You did a good job. Magneto, you did the right thing. For those who dare to hurt your family, you should kill them. Strange, Clark's apology is not about beating Zod, but about fighting in the town. Bruce Wayne, I saw that there are ordinary people in the gas station. Clark Kent, yes. The video continues. General Zod stood up shakily, and his mask was completely broken by Clark's beating. In an instant, the completely different air, completely different pressure, and the light of the yellow sun made General Zod feel extremely uncomfortable. "What did you do to me?" General Zod only felt that his eyes were blurry, and there were countless sounds in his ears. Although he was adapting, this sudden stimulation made him unable to accept it in a short time. My parents taught me, since I was a child, that I should exercise my senses. Zod. Clark showed a happy smile on his face and said to General Zod, focus on what I want to see. What do you think? If the truck driver suddenly honks at this time, can he directly deafen General Zod? Faced with the river god's wonderful ideas, Bruce thought about it seriously and then found that this plan was unusually feasible. There are not many weapons on Earth that can cause damage to a monster like Clark. The opponent's physical defense has reached a very terrifying level. Even nuclear bombs, the strongest weapons on Earth, known to the public, may not be able to hurt him. Although Bruce himself can also make something more lethal than a nuclear bomb. That kind of thing kills 1,000 enemies and injures 800 of its own. If there is a choice, it is definitely not Bruce's first choice. Then the proposal of the river god is very useful. That is to make various weapons for super senses. Don't you have very sharp hearing? Exclamation mark. I will directly use concussion bombs to shock you to death. Why can't the Desert Eagle be used as a conventional weapon but mostly collected? One reason is that the recoil is ridiculous and it is also ridiculously heavy. Compared with ordinary pistols, the convenience of carrying and the rapid shooting performance cannot be compared. Although the power is definitely stronger than ordinary pistols, if heavy firepower is required on the battlefield, machine guns, tanks, mortars, and if it doesn't work, call in a wave of airstrikes. Which of these things is not more powerful than your small broken pistol? And the noise of this thing is also damn loud. If you fire a shot into a closed house, it can be used as a concussion bomb. If the people in the house are unlucky, they may be shocked to death on the spot. Bruce is thinking of this kind of sensory weapon. If ordinary weapons don't work, then I will increase the dose. Thanos has drawn a similar penalty card before, which greatly enhances his hearing. Although the price is that he can hear everything, this sudden increase in hearing is very painful, and Bruce thinks that he can do something in this regard. The video continues. General Zod immediately lost his combat power and struggled on the ground. Clark stood up and said to him, without your helmet, you can see everything, right? This is painful, right? Clark walked to Zod's side, and at this time the Kryptonian spaceship that arrived fired a blue laser and shot Clark away. Two of General Zod's men got off the spaceship and quickly helped Zod back to the spaceship. I didn't expect that even the cannons carried by the Kryptonian spaceship couldn't break through the defense. Bruce said, I thought that Kryptonian weapons would have some effect on you, but now it seems that you are no longer afraid of ordinary weapons after being strengthened by the Sunday. Then the question is, Zod realized that, after absorbing the radiation of the yellow sun, it was only a matter of time before his body changed. If they all absorbed the power of the yellow sun, could Clark really expel it with his own strength? Obviously, no, so our previous answer was wrong. Zod boarded the spaceship and left, but two people stayed. They were ordered to deal with Clark, Zod's adjutant Firer and another elite soldier. And at this moment, the human army actually rushed to the battlefield. Several A-10 fighters received orders to launch indiscriminate and lethal attacks. They quickly locked onto 3 targets and fired 40mm depleted uranium armor-piercing shells directly. When Clark heard the 3 targets, he subconsciously looked back, then dodged but was still shot. It's useless. Don't these guys consider that there are civilians here? Logan, this kind of thing has been seen a lot in the army. Except for the team in the east, other armies have orders to attack indiscriminately. Chapter 598. Bruce's brain opens up. The difference in strength is too big. Tony frowned and said, whether it is Clark himself or the Kryptonians wearing armor, their strength is beyond the scope of what ordinary people in the military can do. That's a GAU-8. The caliber of that machine gun is 40mm. Let alone hitting people. That kind of thing is used to hit tanks. Now it hits the opponent and only knocks him away. Or, it was knocked away when the opponent was careless. Tony couldn't help but regard this group of Kryptonians as his imaginary enemy, and then he tragically discovered that with the technology in his hands, he couldn't find anything that could pose a direct threat to their lives. At present, the best way to deal with the opponent is to lure him. No, it should be said that on the opponent's home field, that is, on the Kryptonian spaceship, the opponent is at the level of normal humans. Let him take off his armor, and then find a way to kill him. Hulk should be able to wrestle with the opponent, but Hulk can't even control it when he gets angry. Thor, who has awakened, can definitely deal with one or two opponents, but he doesn't know without specific data. The main reason is that Thor can discharge electricity and magic, and the opponent's only long-range attack method is a high heat ray. Bruce was even more troubled. Although he had almost consumed all the water drop materials, the armor he made was infinitely close to the level of water droplets, that is, absolutely smooth, but it was still a little short. Diana had used her sword to attack his armor made of water droplets and macro water droplets. Facing Diana's sword, the macro water droplets were intact, while the armor he made had a small cut. Diana was shocked and said that it was the sword of Vulcan, a first-class artifact. But Bruce said that he couldn't even take her sword, so he used a hammer to block the Kryptonian's fist. If it was the original water drop, Bruce would have some confidence, but the water drop armor he'd lied was too fragile. The video continues. The Kryptonian warrior who was knocked away climbed up from the ground unscathed. The previous machine gun was a little too powerful for them and could push him away, but it was useless. Then he made a 3-jump and rushed directly to the fighter plane. He punched through the glass of the cockpit and crushed the pilot's head. Damn it. Seeing the other party's ruthless attack, Bruce knew that he must find a way to be fully prepared. Otherwise, if they could crush a pilot's head today, they could crush the heads of all the people on Earth tomorrow. Another pilot saw the miserable state of his companion and saw another alien rushing towards him. He knew that he was definitely going to die. Since he couldn't survive, he shouldn't die too cowardly. Damn alien. See the backbone of us Earthlings. The machine gun fired crazily. Just when Fire was about to pounce on the spacecraft, a red and blue figure rushed over and took her away, saving the pilot. Bruce and Clark breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. The two rushed into a pizza shop in a scuffle. Before Clark could recover, he was punched away by Fire. Although the battle between the two sides caused great damage, it gave people a light feeling. Fire even said to Clark, "You are too weak, son of Carl." There was a hint of tenderness in Fire's tone. "You lack confidence in yourself and skills." After saying that, she flashed to Clark's side. Clark quickly raised his fist to hit him, but Fire took it lightly and then was knocked away by Fire's punch. "You are bound by moral consciousness." Fire looked at Clark lying on the ground and said, "But we don't, which gives us an advantage in evolution. Space thinking. Survival is the first priority. Historical experience has only proved one thing." Fire grabbed Clark. The smaller Fire formed a sharp contrast with the tall Clark she lifted. Then Fire threw Clark casually and smashed him directly into a laundry store. The strong prey on the weak. Ah. Clark roared and pushed Fire out, and they wrestled again. A big hole was knocked open in the wall of the laundry, and the two of them crashed into the big truck outside. The container of the truck was directly hit and twisted. Just as Clark flew into the sky, he was dragged down by another elite soldier and fell hard to the ground, making a big hole on the ground, and then kicked him out. When the gods fight, the mortals suffer. The originally peaceful streets are now in tatters, filled with smoke and dust, and a helicopter slowly descends. It was not just one helicopter, but a human army. The fully armed soldiers began to surround the battlefield, but what they didn't know was that they were not facing humans, but gods on Earth. In the center of the battlefield, the two Kryptonians didn't care about the Earthlings who were no different from bugs in their eyes. The elite soldiers pressed Clark to the ground and slid him a few hundred meters away. A long scratch was dragged on the entire road, and the road administration department saw it as a cure for high blood pressure. Fire also rushed up, and the three of them fought in close combat. Clark was beaten by two experienced elite warriors because of his poor skills. Clark, who was beaten furious, finally exploded. His eyes flashed red, and he fired a high temperature ray, forcing the two to retreat and destroying part of their armor. "How high is the temperature of the laser you emit?" Bruce was like a student who was trapped in a math problem and finally found the inspiration to solve the problem. The feeling at that moment can only be understood but not described. I haven't calculated it either. Clark said, my heat rays can adjust the temperature by themselves. I think the temperature at that time was at least tens of thousands of degrees. As for the surrounding objects not being ignited, it was because I was able to control my heat rays and prevent their energy from leaking out. Generally speaking, I use my heat rays to grow beards. Hang beards? Yes. Clark scratched his head and said, you can see that my body is too hard. Even the hair is the same, so I can only use the heat of the heat rays to grow beards. Generally speaking, I say to use a mirror to reflect the heat rays, and then Clark's words gave Bruce inspiration. Glass does not have a fixed melting point due to different types, but the highest temperature that a general household mirror can withstand is about 1000 degrees Celsius. Then Clark's previous prediction of a high temperature of 10,000 degrees Celsius can almost really kill the Kryptonians. No. Chapter 599 Young Batman, did you drop this gold Superman, silver Superman, or this Clark? The full name of this chapter is in the mini theater. Bruce realized that this was not the way to calculate it. The weapons of the Kryptonian spacecraft did not cause much damage to Clark before, or let Clark shoot at his own body after returning to see how much temperature his body can withstand. As the saying goes, practice makes perfect. Bruce suddenly felt that there was a suitable experimental subject here. Why should he fantasize? At this moment, Clark suddenly felt a chill, just like the white mice in the laboratory were selected by the experimenters to become today's experimental subjects. Image continues. All commandos, I order you to aim at the target. The human army began to act. A commando asked the blue-clad commander at the headquarters whether they wanted to launch an attack together, and the headquarters gave the answer, aim at all targets. The human army fired crazily and then scraped the 3 Kryptonians. Although their bullets hit the 3 Kryptonians, it was useless, especially Clark. A depleted uranium armor-piercing bullet hit his eyes, and he just rubbed his eyes, as if there was sand in his eyes. The Kryptonian warrior grabbed a white van and smashed it directly at the helicopter. He tried to use the simplest operation to achieve the highest output. It turned out that he succeeded. The wing of the helicopter was directly broken by the car, and the plane fell down in a rotation. Seeing that the pilot was about to fall to the ground and smashed into a pulp, Clark ignored the pain in his eyes and flew over to hold the pilot in the air and spun around before falling. Are you okay? Faced with Clark's greeting, the driver was about to answer when he saw an enemy attacking from behind, and he was also very tough, ready to pull out his gun and shoot, but was pushed away by Clark with a palm. I hope he is okay. Because Clark pushed the driver away, he had no time to dodge and was punched and flew hundreds of meters away. On the other side, facing the backward gunpowder weapons of the Earthlings, Fyra was crazy and rushed up to use the most primitive method to knock them away. The speed was so fast that ordinary people could not distinguish it with the naked eye. Only seeing the figure flash, Fyra teleported from one place to another, just like teleporting. After climbing out of the crashed helicopter, the sergeant applied for a fire attack on the communicator, then took out a pistol and shot at Fyra. But even depleted uranium armor-piercing bullets can't penetrate the armor, so what's the use of a small pistol? But we have to fight. Even if we can't win, even if it's hand-to-hand combat, we still have to fight. The small pistol splashed sparks on Fyra's armor. The low-level gunpowder weapon is no different from a small spark in front of the Kryptonian armor. No, it's not as good as a small spark. At least the spark of a small spark is bigger. Fyra was speechless with a hint of admiration. At least she didn't lose face as a soldier by being a low-level creature. Seeing that the other party had run out of bullets and actually took out a saber to prepare for hand-to-hand combat with her, Fyra untied the mask to let the other party see her face clearly, and then she also took out a black dagger. Fyra was satisfied with the Master Chief's courage. He was a soldier, and a soldier should die the way a soldier should, that is, die gloriously in battle. To die gloriously is to die for a good cause. Fyra said to the Master Chief, I have seen your courage. You are qualified to die under my sword. Fyra, is this your relative? Clark's face was full of question marks. He was originally moved by the Master Chief, but you suddenly gave me this, and gave me an extra relative? Just as the two were about to engage in hand-to-hand combat, and just as the Master Chief was about to die, a figure so fast that it was not clear at all passed by and knocked Fire to the ground. It was Clark. Fire's mask began to become illusory. The mask that was originally damaged by the heat ray began to gradually fail at this moment. The Master Chief saw this and didn't care about so much. He carried his injured comrade on his back and ran. "You can't win," Fire said to Clark. "If you save one person, we will kill more." Fire's face also showed a painful expression. The harsh sound made her dizzy. Clark saw this and was hit by a burning truck before he could take advantage of the victory. Fire, who was enduring the extremely harsh sound, heard the sound behind her, raised one hand, blocked a tomahawk missile with her bare hands, and was then stunned on the spot by the strong explosion. At this moment, the Kryptonian spacecraft that came to support shot down several fighter planes and took the unconscious Fire back. For a while, the chaotic battlefield quieted down, leaving only Clark and the US military. Clark slowly walked out of the ruins. After experiencing a big battle, he didn't even mess up his hair. The sergeant who was saved by Clark came to Clark and said, "He is not our enemy." "Thank you, Colonel." "Wow." The River God said to Clark, "What brand of hairspray do you have? Can you give me a link?" As expected of the River God, you can always speak seriously about problems that we can't imagine. "Well, my hairstyle is naturally like this." Clark looked helpless. He was still thinking about how he could deal with Zod and his men at that time, but you did this. "Got it." The River God seemed to see Clark's worried willingness from his face. "How about this? If you really have to fight, you let your mother throw you into the river so that I can help you find 2 more helpers." Clark had a mouthful of phlegm stuck in his throat, which was particularly aggrieved. But after thinking about it carefully, he suddenly felt that this proposal, in theory, should be possible. After all, this guy has already demonstrated his bug-like ability before. If he wants to save the Earth, it is not unacceptable to have 2 more of them. Just think of them as 2 more brothers, and they can have 2 more helpers during the busy farming season. "I just don't know if my mother can accept this proposal." Bruce said he didn't know if Martha could accept it, but he couldn't accept it anyway. His head is big enough with just one, and you're going to make 2 more. Or 2 enhanced versions. You're going to cross the universe, right? Not only that, this is going to cross the multiverse. Clark listened to it for half a night and almost understood these concepts. Not to mention that they are in the same universe. They may not even be in the same multiverse. So Clark just regarded this plan as a backup plan. If there is really no other way, there is no problem in trying it. If it fails, just think of it as taking a shower, right? Video continues. When Clark flew back home and saw that his mother was safe and sound, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Great clothes, Clark." "Sorry, it's okay, just some personal belongings." Martha glanced at the messy house and said nonchalantly, "I'll have to replace them anyway." "But you are unique, Mom." Clark said to Martha, "The secret book that Zod has been looking for can allow my people to be reborn. Isn't that great?" Martha said happily. "But I think they don't just want to share the Earth with us." Loki Odinson, "Share the Earth? Even if they are willing, the people on Earth will not be willing, Clark. If you don't believe me, go ask Ace." "Oh Ace, thank you for giving me this opportunity to expose the scar." Loki, "Ace, in my world, there is a group of cosmic people named Bolton. Their home planet exploded, so they came to Earth and wanted to settle on Earth. But in the end the negotiations broke down due to the population problem." Loki Odinson, "Then the guardian of mankind, Ultraman from the Ultra Brothers, killed 2 billion Boltons with a single shot of his 8-point light wheel." Ace, "Thank you so much for your supplement." Loki, "Ganata, this is normal. No one wants to introduce a group of alien refugees with completely different cultural customs and appearances to a planet with already tight resources. This will not only cause great management difficulties, but also cause many conflicts with local residents. Except for some politicians, whose heads are not sure if they are growing on their butts, no one is willing to let others share their homeland." Logan, "Indeed, humans and us mutants can fight each other to the point of bloodshed, let alone aliens and humans." Image continues on Zod's spaceship. "What happened there?" The Kryptonian who stayed on the ship asked. He exposed a temporary weakness. Zod said. That doesn't matter. The remaining scientific researcher said, because I have locked the location of the secret codex, he is not in the cabin at all. Jor-El took the secret codex away, and he merged the genes of billions of people into his son's stem cells. All the descendants of Kryptonians are stored in the body of this exile. In other words, your body is now a mobile Kryptonian human gene bank? Bruce said, I thought your father just transformed the secret codex and temporarily stored it in your body, but I didn't expect it to merge with your cells. That makes sense. Mr. Jor-El said, that you are the bridge between Krypton and Earth. Maybe he meant for you to marry and have children on Earth, and then merge the Kryptonian blood with the Earthlings little by little. As time goes by, maybe one day, the entire Earth will have the power of Kryptonian blood. Cough 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 cough. Clark was frightened by Bruce's words. He quickly said, stop it. I'm 29 years old and still a bachelor. How can I spread my blood all over the Earth? So it's just a possibility. Bruce said, but I calculated it carefully. Suppose you have 2 or 3 children, and these children have Kryptonian blood in their bodies. As they grow up, get married and have children. Okay. Stop it, please. Clark was completely defeated. The video continues. Zod asked with a painful look on his face, does Kal-El have to be alive so that we can extract the treasure from his cells? No. General Zod understood, and at his command, the entire spacecraft split from the middle. Start. World engine. The military base on the ground that was detecting the Kryptonian spacecraft immediately reported they started to move. The spacecraft split into 2 halves, one flying to the east and the other flying to the southern hemisphere. How fast is that thing? 24 Mach numbers, and it keeps accelerating. According to the budget, it will eventually crash into the Indian Ocean. The 2 machines landed at the same time, and one that looked like a hairy crab took root in the Indian Ocean and directly triggered a huge tsunami when it fell. And the other one. People in Metropolis stopped to watch the strange spaceship that suddenly appeared. At this moment, in Gotham, which is only 1 river away from Metropolis, a handsome guy is racing. Yeah. Bruce nodded and said, yes, the one driving is me. Load the phantom projector. At Zod's command, the 2 machines simultaneously emitted huge white beams of light, and the white beams of light in the Indian Ocean even absorbed a little bit of water droplets. All our hopes are now placed on the world engine. Let's get started. At Zod's command, the 2 machines were fully started. With the 2 machines as the center, the surrounding environment began to change continuously. The most intuitive thing is gravity. They are transforming the Earth's environment. I understand. Bruce shouted, your only weakness is everything in Krypton. As long as they transform the Earth into Krypton, you will become weak and powerless, and Zod with armor will not be more difficult to catch you than a half-dead snail. The faces of everyone present were extremely ugly. This was the most direct and serious alien invasion they had ever seen. Although Thanos' army was mighty, it was actually no different from a group of beasts. There were many powerful aliens in Ultra Legend, but neither Emperor nor the Kyrilloids had as direct an impact on the Earth as this one. Although Emperor directly extinguished the sun, the impact on the Earth in a short period of time was not as great as Zod's. As for Gatangia, that thing is obviously not an alien, okay. That thing is the old evil god. The military base also detected the abnormality here. 2 spaceships directly transformed the entire Earth with Metropolis and the Indian Ocean as the center. It relies on connecting spaceships to operate. They are increasing the mass of the Earth by some method and injecting atmospheric particulate matter. Oh my god. Dr. Amy came to a conclusion. They are transforming the Earth. It's too difficult. In order to control the number of words in the title, I deleted it to pieces. Full name, Rubber God, Young Bruce Wayne. What did you drop? Is it this golden Superman, this silver Superman, or this ordinary friendly farmer Clark? Today is the last day. I will see if it will give me the damn medal tomorrow. Chapter 600. How to make Bruce Wayne look black. What on earth is that? Planetary Transformation Project. Changing the Earth's atmosphere and topography. Transforming the Earth into Krypton. General Swanwick said. But what effect does this have on us? Dr. Amy heard this question and replied coldly, if they succeed, There will be no so-called us. General Swanwick, I'm talking to the control console. A soldier said, Colonel Hardy is on his way here, and Superman is with him. Superman? That's the alien, that's what they call him. On the other side, Lois and Clark rushed to the base together, and the transport plane was also loaded with Clark's spaceship when he came to Earth. Superman? Nice name. Thank you. Does the key lie in the ship Mr. Clark took when he came to Earth? Maybe not. Bruce said, the real key lies in Louis. Besides, how did the General know that Clark's home planet is called Krypton? We have a plan, General. Louis pointed to the ship and explained to General Swanwick, this is a ship he took when he came to Earth. The energy source of the ship is the phantom projector, which can distort space. Clark also came over from the side. The principle of the Zod ship is the same. If we can make two projectors collide, a singularity will be generated. Just like a black hole. Dr. Amy and General Swanwick said what the two were going to say next. Am I a little unconscious? Strange rubbed his temple and asked, why did my first reaction come from a joke and a brain hole? Me too, Mr. Strange. The sequel of the 10 colds? So as long as we open this time and space door, theoretically they will be sucked in. This is the answer. Constantine rubbed his temple speechlessly. Who could have thought of this? But when he looked to the other side, he found that the former trio of scientists had gathered again and quickly accepted this possibility. Dr. Amy asked, so you want us to use it to hit the enemy, General? Colonel Hardy said, the gravity of this spacecraft does not exceed 17,000 pounds. We can use C-17 to transport the airdrop. This plan is feasible. If I don't stop the machine in the Indian Ocean, the gravity field will continue to expand. Clark said this to General Swanwick. In fact, he wanted to ask for a fight. As a soldier, General Swanwick understood Clark's meaning and nodded to him. The feelings between comrades sometimes don't need too many words. A look, a move, is enough. If that machine continues to transform the Earth and makes the Earth more and more like Krypton, will your power be weakened? It's possible. Clark frowned. He knew that it was not possible, but it would definitely happen. But for the sake of the Earth, someone has to do something, and he is that person, so he has to do something, even if it means sacrificing his life. Then I have to try too. Clark bit his lip and finally looked into Louis' eyes. Louis also saw his determination and didn't say much. A stream of air rolled in all directions. Louis and Dr. Amy subconsciously raised their hands to block it. When they looked at Clark, the other party had already flown into the sky, leaving only a white streak in the blue sky. The sonic boom cloud appeared like a flash in the pan and dissipated like a flash in the pan. A blue and red figure flew towards the Pacific Ocean at Mach number. General Zod gritted his teeth and endured the buzzing in his ears. The light of the yellow sun made him feel extremely uncomfortable, but as a general who had experienced many battles, Zod used his tenacious willpower to resist this discomfort. He knew that, in order to get a higher chance of winning, turning the Earth into Krypton was only part of the plan. He had to adapt to the environment on Earth, so that he could achieve perfect restraint when facing Clark. General Zod stood on an ice surface and looked around. The yellow sun made him see everything around him as double images, but soon, the pain on his face gradually eased, and finally, there was no discomfort. Zod shook his head, looked at the surrounding environment, and finally set his sights on the Krypton exploration spacecraft behind him. It's time to meet an old friend. It only took him a few minutes to adapt to the environment on Earth. Bruce's face was extremely ugly. Originally, the environment on Earth was also a trick he used to deal with General Zod, but he didn't expect that the other party only took a few minutes to overcome the impact of the Earth's environment on his body. What's more, General Zod will become stronger under the shining of the yellow sun. Bruce made up his mind that, if he wanted to start a big move, he must find a way to solve the opponent on the Krypton spacecraft. Otherwise, when the time comes, we can directly use the electronic virus to invade the Kryptonian spaceship and then let the spaceship jump back to the Phantom Zone by itself. Bruce touched a card in his bag. It was a reward card he won in the last lottery, and it was also one of his 100 million trump cards. He would never use it unless it was a critical moment. because this thing is too unstable. It is more like a bomb used to perish together than a trump card, and it is the kind that will explode only with a certain probability. It should be, because General Zod's talent points are all in combat. Peter said, Mr. Clark gives me the feeling of a hexagonal, no, a round warrior. Round. Clark looked down at his body, and he was not fat. This circle refers to your abilities, such as intelligence, physical strength, defense, and attack. I see. Your father injected the secret code into your body, and you have the genes of all Kryptonians in your body. In other words, you should be an all-round talent, and each of your abilities should be at its full potential. But over the years, you have never systematically trained your abilities. Although your potential is very high, you have not fully utilized it. Just like me, I have obtained the light of Ultraman Noah. Even if I do nothing, I will be able to gradually gain the power of Ultraman Noah over time. I call this process fusion. The light is melting with me, and the deeper the light merges with me, the stronger the power of light I can use. The speed of fusion can be controlled by me. If I practice and develop my strength well, the speed at which your light merges with me will become faster. Otherwise, although it is also merging, it will be very slow. Bruce Wayne didn't want to talk. Without proper development, he was able to send human civilization back to the Stone Age. What would happen if he developed it well? Bruce Wayne was sure that as long as Clark was there, he could really force the entire human race to be helpless. He was too fast and could survive in space. He didn't need to fight the Earthlings head on. He could just fight guerrilla warfare, smash a block today, burn a street tomorrow, and redecorate the White House the day after tomorrow. Under this kind of oppression, it was only a matter of time for humans to surrender to Clark. As for Zod, he should have maximumed out some of his attributes, but his potential was limited by the secret book. Although his current attributes are strong, Zod will not become stronger as time goes by. But you can, as long as you have enough time, you can defeat Zod like you defeat an Earthling. Really? Clark felt a little incredible. He never had an intuitive feeling about his own strength. He was strong, but he was indeed strong against Earthlings. Everything on Earth was A4 and A4 fold to him. He was weak, but he was on par with a group of Kryptonians. The other side could pin him to the ground and beat him with just a piece of armor. If he didn't have the heat ray, he would have been beaten down long ago. Logan, at least you can practice your fighting skills. There are big problems with your way of exerting force. If you modify it, you can hit more power. Captain America, you were just a farmer before. It's normal that you haven't practiced fighting skills. Compared with you, no one on Earth should be able to withstand your punch, but now there is an opponent of the same level as you. If you can't get stronger power, you should find a way to increase your fighting power from other places. Captain America, in addition to practicing fighting skills, you can also find a way to get a good weapon. Part of my fighting power also comes from my shield, absorbing the power of the sun. This is just my guess. I think the way you become stronger is inseparable from the sun. Why don't you fly near the sun after you go back and try to absorb the power of the sun at close range? Ace, at CLARK Kent, Clark, if you want to go near the sun, pay attention to the distance. The gravity of the sun is terrible. If you are not careful, you may not be able to get out if you are sucked into the sun. Ace, brother Jack was almost sucked into the sun that year. Strange. How about you try our Kamikaze gymnastics and see if you can also invite an Ultraman. Peter borrowed the power of Ultraman Noah when he was practicing Kamikaze gymnastics. Hickily, I suddenly have an idea. I have drawn a skill card called Summoning God, which has a similar effect to Kamikaze gymnastics. How about letting Clark try to borrow the power of the King of Ultraman? The group of people chatted more and more happily, constantly trying to find ways to strengthen Clark, who was already ridiculously strong. From the most basic way of exerting force to high-end energy techniques to the most advanced way of borrowing power correctly and not paying back the debt. They completely ignored Bruce Wayne's face, which was as black as the bottom of a pot. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.